welcome to this week's Game Informer Show. I am your host, Ben Hanson, joined as always by Tim Turi on the end of the table.
Oh, hello. This is this week's Game Informer Show. It's good to be back.
And let's see, we're going to have you for 5 minutes, then we're going to swap you out with a houseplant. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay.
Anything that has more personality.
And then speaking of personality, the bundle of personality, the little baby boy, Dan Tack.
The little baby boy.
Our little baby boy.
I don't even get that one.
We're so proud of you.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Thank you. And then we have Andrew Reiner.
Hello.
Sir Mix-a-Lot himself.
Yes.
Great.
That's what they call me when I'm rapping.
We've had you two, let's see, like
I think we were on one
back-to-back
before.
weeks.
No.
I know, but you were just on and you were just on, is my point.
Yeah.
So it's good to have you two back.
You guys have been playing some hot games recently.
the
Basically.
hottest
We want to
big
reach
games.
into we want to go into your ear canal, knock politely, hello, and then go in and pull out your brains that have that game information on them.
Pull them out through your nose like they used to do for the mummies when they liquefy
Push
the brain.
through the ears, and then it comes out your nose, and then we talk about the games that you played.
And you fill up a little bowl with your brains.
Well, right, yeah.
So, okay, yeah.
Eat it and then talk.
Yeah.
Eat it and then talk.
So this week, we're talking about Star Wars Battlefront. Talking about the other sci-fi adventure. Finally getting around to StarCraft 2, Legacy of the Void. We'll find out how that legacy fares.
We certainly will.
Then we're going to talk about a couple other things, little odds and ends going in. We'll leave a little bit of a surprise.
I love ends a little more than odds, but I'm a big fan of both of them.
We're getting both of them. Then we're getting hot emails,
Four things.
the best feedback. And then to round out this episode, we have a long interview with Sean Vanaman.
It's a great chat.
Oh, nice.
It's a wonderful chat. Tim was there for this one, which is nice.
Yeah.
But he is working on Firewatch now, but you might know him specifically from his work on Walking Dead Season 1.
Yeah.
He was a co-lead for that game, writer.
Also part of the
unbelievable.
Idle Thumbs network of
Yeah.
of podcasts and stuff like that. And Firewatch, if you haven't heard of it, it's a game. Basically, you are a sort of forest ranger type person, someone that watches for fires, and you're exploring around. There's something weird happens. I think like you're away from your tower and get a call, and it's like, wait, someone's in your tower or something. And it's just basically a big mystery set in like the 90s or something like that.
It's set in the 80s in Wyoming, which is a setting that's new for video games. I'm excited about it. Also, if you haven't seen footage of this game, just go ahead and Google Firewatch right now because it has an awesome kind of Team Fortress 2 aesthetic.
But first person.
Yeah, and the art lead is Ollie Moss. Sean makes reference to him at a certain point, but you might know him for if you've seen cool-looking stylized Star Wars posters.
The ones where it's like 3PO or Boba Fett's face and like Boba Fett's visor is Bespin. Like,
right.
It's awesome.
That's his work. He's also done, he did the cover of Resistance 3, I guess might be more relevant.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, sorry, is it Cloud City is on Bespin, right? So you got to say
that is
Cloud
correct.
City.
Yeah, it's like
Cloud City.
That is
Up in the
correct.
sky.
Got it.
Cloud City
Of
system.
Bespin.
It's very, of Bespin.
I think that's what it's called.
Yeah, but also talked to Sean Vanaman about a lot of stuff about his time at Disney. We get the full saga of how Epic Mickey began, which he is on the grassroots of, which is really
That was
interesting.
really fascinating, and also some like really candid feedback about like where Telltale games have gone. You know, his connection to like the characters that he helped establish in Walking Dead Season 1, which are some of like the most memorable and beloved video game characters of like in recent years.
Yeah,
maybe
for sure.
Ever. Yeah.
Talk about Mad Men a little bit and talk about his impressions of Fallout 4. So it's a good long chat, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Also, I want to thank everybody for the nice feedback on the Fergus interview from last week. I really appreciated that.
It was
Some
really
people
good.
enjoyed
Yeah,
it.
hats off. That was
thank
great.
you.
Vanaman talks about the lead for Firewatch is the actor that plays Harry Crane from Mad Men, and so he talks about like working with him, and I'm super excited to hear more of him in the game.
Yeah, definitely. And that guy's from Minnesota, so we should get him on the show someday.
No kidding.
All right, but to start out, we should go to Cloud City itself.
Yes.
With Andrew Reiner leading the A-Wing charge.
Is there a map on Cloud City?
No, not yet.
It's got to be coming.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, you just want... I guess that's a good jumping in point here
Yeah.
for Battlefront is it recreates the Star Wars experiences. Like, it makes you feel like you're in the movies. Probably better than any game has or any other interactive...
It looks so good.
I know Dan Tack
Entertainment.
would argue Super Star Wars makes you feel like you're right there.
I tell you, I was playing the other day, and it was just amazing. That game has stood the test of time.
Are you joking?
No.
It's like taking off VR. It's just like, oh my God, I'm not in Star Wars when I turn off the game.
Wait, are you really defending Super Star Wars
Yeah,
today?
I
That
am.
Super Nintendo
It's
game from
great.
'92?
Yeah, it's like it's got all that challenge, and still really, all takes place in the Star Wars
Dan
universe.
Tack,
It's awesome.
are we going to crack you? Is this a joke?
No, it's not a joke.
He's smiling.
It's not a
He's
joke.
smiling.
He's
I am
cracking.
smiling, but it's not a joke.
He's crying.
I'm smiling because I like the game.
His face is peeling off.
Dan is
We're
a
not watching.
confirmed smiler when he tells the truth.
You like shooting you dumb spiders
Nothing
and
sells
tarantulas?
the
those are womp rats.
No, nothing sells the truth like a slow smile that you try to fight back.
Perfect. Dan Tack, we're glad to have you here, and we're looking forward to just a new world of facial expressions from you.
Great.
All right,
I've got plenty in the bag. So
I hope
I'll bring
some of our
out.
conversation really bores you so that you can tune out. And make
I
some
have
weird
no
faces.
doubt that it will.
Wow.
Perfect.
Jeez.
Reiner,
That's going to make me tear up.
Please go on a 40-minute monologue about Star Wars Battlefront
Yes.
so that he can be bored.
So, the short, it is the most authentic Star Wars experience you could ask for. You do feel like you are in these movies, and I mean, just having an AT-AT next to you, the scale of these things, and watching it, how it almost looks stop motion animated, like those
good
touches
thing for games?
Yeah, I mean, it's those little touches that you remember from the movies and are spot on in the game. Like the X-Wings look dirty, they have scorch marks on them. When you shoot a stormtrooper with a laser gun, nothing should really happen, but they have that weird explosion,
Right.
the sparks flying off their body. Just all those little touches that from George Lucas's classic trilogy are in the game, and you really do feel like you're on Endor, you're on Hoth, a part of those huge epic battles.
Endor would feel good anyway, but then like you hear like little Ewok giggles or something coming from the trees. Yeah,
So 10 out of 10. Let's move on.
Yeah, that's it.
that's it.
In terms of the experience it's presenting, like trying to bring you into these worlds, yes, it is one of the most gorgeous games of this generation,
For sure.
if not the most gorgeous game of this generation. What other one would you say is?
I'd say Order 1886 is the best looking game of this generation so far.
It's
What about
pretty
Bloodborne?
good.
What about
Order
Bloodborne?
kicks Bloodborne's ass.
I
don't
think
think so.
I think that they're on even footing in some respects. I think Bloodborne gets some extra nods because of like the performance of it and what they're actually letting you do while it still maintains that look.
I know I looked at an Apple for a long time in Order, and it looked amazing.
Nice. I want to ask you a follow-up question, Reiner, which is, do you feel like when you played split screen that the visuals held up pretty well?
Oh, you kidder.
Is this a joke?
So that's a Star Wars Battlefront question. There was a little bit of a frame rate drop.
Okay.
I noticed, but rendering that environment twice, however they did that, I don't know how they made that game work the way they did.
It's
But
like Battlefront and Call of Duty are like the two big titles that have maintained split screen.
But I played a lot of split screen of this game, and I was a little bit bummed out because I'm a huge split screen supporter, and I think it's incredibly smart that DICE kind of courted the split screen audience local, especially after Halo really dropped the ball. And that seemed to have... People are still talking about it, like, oh, God, I'm so bummed I can't play co-op couch Halo.
Right.
And just the idea that DICE, of all companies, is going big on split screen now, but you can't do split screen and play online.
no, and you can't,
Yeah, like
they
you
don't
can in
even
Call of
give
Duty.
you like a semblance of that experience, right? Like, here's our Death Star. Here is our core experience. Look how awesome this is. Look how powerful this experience can be. Here's this little Endor moon, here's the co-op experience. Here's the single player experience. It is like a really bad, it's survival mode. It's like a bad horde mode.
Why is it bad? Actually, that's the most
there's
fun
so many-
I had with that game was playing that
There
horde
are
ripoff.
such huge lulls between the waves. And as Jeff Markian-Fava and I noticed, there's a video we just posted online. You can exploit the AI like you would not believe. They will be fish in a barrel just coming to you.
Fish in a log?
Fish in a log. Yeah, we hung out, hid in a log, and just mowed these guys down left and right. Just wave after wave after wave.
Like you're in the log and have like back to back on either.
No, we're just pointing one end of the log,
okay.
and they're just like, huh? Just walking in front, like not even looking in the log, just like they're around here somewhere, and we're just like choo 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 choo.
Is Endor the only setting for this?
No. So there's four maps, and that's one of the problems with the game. There are only 4 environments in the game. So you got Hoth, you have Sullust, you have Tatooine, and then you have the planet Moon.
And just different
of Endor.
maps set on those
Yep.
planets. Oh,
12
okay.
maps total, 4 per mode. So if you like playing Walker Assault, there's 4 variations, right? Like if you like Supremacy, there's 4 there. If you like Heroes Villains, there's 4 there.
12 maps, it's not that bad. You make it seem like it's terrible. I
But when
understand-
they share such like aesthetic through lines through them, like,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
the
like,
novelty. of
It's the
different
whole
maps.
game, though, man. Like, so, I can see 12 maps getting stale if that's all there is, right?
That's
Yeah,
all there
I
is.
guess so.
And like Battlefield, Battlefield only had 10 maps. Battlefield 4. But those maps worked on all the modes. So if you preferred one mode, you had 10 variations right there. So it gets old very quick. It's like, okay, I'm doing the Battle of Hoth again. The gameplay is fun. It's DICE. The guns don't kick in Star Wars, but they still feel powerful. Like they made them feel like weapons you want to use, and you feel like you're achieving things either close quarters or long range.
Sure.
But it just gets to a point where you're like, I love these big 40-man battles, but I'm doing the same thing over and over and over again, and their progression systems do nothing to help this. So basically your unlockables there are 12 guns you can unlock, just 12. Your standard blaster is right in the middle. So you're unlocking worse guns.
Yeah, the trade-off is so annoying because your damage isn't like going up until you get like some weird little pistol thing that looks unreasonably bad to use. Like,
It's noisy cricket.
Yeah.
So I found using just the standard Stormtrooper Imperial Blaster through the majority of the game was the preferred way to play, because if you use like a certain shotgun, you're kind of bound to, a gun that performs like a shotgun, you're bound to certain types of play. It's not like you're gaining it's like not like Call of Duty or Battlefield where you get a different assault rifle and you just like to feel a little better. Mm-hmm. It's like these are very distinct, and it's like you're kind of locked into this one gun. And then the other unlockables are absurd. It's like you can buy with your in-game currency. There's no microtransactions, anything like that. In-game currency to buy stormtroopers without helmets, like variations.
That's pretty
you get
amazing.
a new blast rifle or buy a goatee for this man.
Yeah, and it's like there's like 30 different stormtroopers without helmets on. So you see these idiots playing this game without these helmets on. Like, do not do that. This is Star Wars. Put your damn helmet on.
Yeah.
But you
Come
think
on,
they're-
John
you think-
Boyega.
Yeah, I was wondering if it's like episode 7, like
That
that's
could
not
be what
become
they're leading up to,
a
right?
stormtrooper running around without a helmet on is now an iconic part of episode 7. I wonder if they're just kind of like, well, we can, make it so you can customize this, and it kind of links up with that look of the new one.
It's literally the first thing we saw from episode 7, right?
right.
And then emotes, which I've yet to see someone use an emote in like over 100 matches. No one has done one yet.
Also, it's weird to have a fist bump in the Star Wars universe. Like, when
Right.
did that? Was that a Yoda
Or
thing?
dancing.
He taught
Chewbacca
everybody?
and Han.
Yeah,
Every
it's
other
a thing.
scene. Yeah.
It's a thing.
I think so.
But the minute-to-minute
Can't
gameplay is
fist bump. Sorry.
the minute-to-minute gameplay is great. The weapons feel really good. Yes, you're using mostly one throughout the game. Vehicles control well. Flying an X-wing, doing the dogfighting mode. I can't remember the name of it, but where it's 10 on 10.
It seems
It's a lot of
okay.
fun. It's like Ace Combat. If you ever played Ace Combat multiplayer,
Sure.
it's very similar to that. Using those vehicles in the big 40-man matches is a little trickier, but I did see some people like just mowing people down with them, like A-wings just coming in, not carpet bombing, but just like laser fire like you wouldn't believe, knocking like 3 people down.
Tearing
It's
him a
like,
new A-wing.
yeah, that was awesome. ATST, stuff like that. All that plays really well, but again, repetition becomes the issue with this game, and I want to spend more time in it. I like it. I really, really do like it. Some of my favorite moments of the year are from this game, and just those emergent little stories that happen, like taking on Boba Fett and just being like, oh my God, he's going to take me down. He's coming at me with a flamethrower. He takes the skies, and I just have one rocket blast, not locked on, and I shoot it and with a prayer, and I hit him, and he goes down. I'm like, oh my God, that was amazing. That was one of the best Star Wars moments I've had.
Does a little Sarlacc pit appear beneath him
Right.
anywhere he falls? Yeah, it's weird. I'm curious to hear what from you guys that played it, like what your ramp was, because like I sat down with it and I was like at first sort of like, oh man, just like the sounds, the look, the feel of the weapons, just this basic deathmatch that you can start off with. And I was starting to like come around and I'm like, I'm liking this. Like, oh, there's some weapons to unlock. And I just slowly realized like that it wasn't really going to shake up. And it's like this maybe like 3-hour ramp where it's just like, oh, this is it. This is it. I don't know if it's going to get much better than this.
But at the same time, you say this is it, and we talk about building to realizing that there's not much in this package. I'm still convinced, even though you ended up giving it a 7.5, it's kind of getting mixed reviews across the board. But I still think this game is going to sell like hotcakes. Like, you show anybody that demo, like, hey, you play it for 10 minutes and people are going to play split screen with their friends and spread the word about like, hey, play and shoot things in the Star Wars universe. People are going to lose their minds.
That doesn't
for
mean
this.
it's good.
You're really going out on a limb with that prediction. Are you sure you want to do that?
I'm just saying,
a giant
even though
Star
like
Wars game selling well.
I mean, I think it's disappointing ultimately, but I still think that it's going to bring millions of Star Wars fans a boatload of joy.
Oh, yeah,
right?
sure.
Well,
Yeah, and
sure. In the same way that you can buy like, you give a little kid a stick and tell him that it's a lightsaber,
Right.
And then they love that thing.
Or you give idiot baby Dan Tack Super Star Wars and he's convinced it's a good game.
I'm not
Super
saying
Star
that
Wars
there's-
is a great
I'm not
game.
saying it's not that there's no joy to be had with this game. Like there's fun to be had. It's just like for the long term, if you want to like, if you're someone who loves playing shooters online and prestiging in Call of Duty and then like going through as much of zombies mode as you want, like stuff like that, like it's just there's no meat in the long run. I don't feel like.
Yeah. And I would, I think gamers have been hungry for Star Wars for a while. It's been a long wait before our last big release. And
then a developer like DICE on it.
yeah, and I would say that the hype was kind of akin to like a new Grand Theft Auto coming out. It would be like a 4 or 5 year block where you didn't have it, or Fallout, right? Like, and then it comes out and it's like, oh, how is it? And it's like, oh no, it's not great. And I think EA Access, that Xbox One 10-hour trial they gave people, I think that ended up being a really bad idea for them, because it was like a lot of people were just like, got my fill at 6 hours.
Yeah, you find out earlier than 10 hours if it's even for you. And it's like if you bit off just a little bit of a demo and didn't feel like you wanted to keep playing, like, why would you ever shell out? It's a $60 full retail game.
Yeah, so it was like a 5-hour rental,
Right.
like Redbox.
Yes.
rental.
So here's my arc of having fun with this game, right? Booted up again, super impressed with the sound design, especially if there's one like really big explosive, like a super explosive grenade thing, and it sounds so good, it, like deadens everything for a while, then just blows up.
How do you feel about how sparingly they use the music?
I was tempted to turn the music off after a little, which is an option in
Really?
the menus. Yeah, it's great, but like I want to keep that music somewhat sacred. It feels a little bit like playing a Lego Star Wars game where it's just on loop over and over and over again. And they make it dynamic, but it's still like I can only hear the Force theme so many times before I become numb to it.
So it's basically like 30 seconds of John Williams, and then another composer kind of took over, and what he said is like it's kind of a B-side. So it's like the 30 seconds, and then he continued that melody or that line,
That idea, and just
into something else that continued on for whatever they needed it
I
for.
think that's a cool idea.
Yeah,
Except he
it's kinda neat.
transitioned every classic Star Wars song into the Cantina music over and over again, just a slow
With
segue.
lyrics.
It's just so good.
But anyway, so played some online matches, and it's just like, oh boy, it's just this mindless multiplayer garbage. Where it's like, at a certain point, it just doesn't mean anything. Like there's no team chat, there's no coordination. It's just okay, I shot somebody.
Is
okay,
there no
I got
team
shot.
chat? 'Cause I had
No,
my
there
headset
is, but
on.
like no one's talking. That's the thing. It's like there's no coordination at all, just in the basic skirmish. And then we played some like split screen where you actually get to play as the heroes. And that was actually, it was a good, simple, short amount of fun where it's like, okay, I was playing as Palpatine, my roommate was playing as Han Solo, running around Endor, and it is hilarious to me for the Emperor to be going up against Han Solo. And like the idea of like the Emperor,
Have they ever met? Have they even seen each other?
no, but it's the Emperor running around. Like he just looks like E.T. running around, like like arms all folded over, running around in the woods, like hiding
He's
behind
old.
stumps and stuff. Like Han Solo, come over here.
Yeah.
And then he has this move where he can like twirl and fly towards people. So like to hide behind a tree as the Emperor, wait for Han Solo to come out by the ship, and then like launch yourself like as the Emperor towards Han Solo made me laugh like a maniac.
Yeah,
honestly.
it's silly, but it is kind of cool that I mean, when you get these guys in those big matches, Supremacy or Walker Assault, and it's like, oh my God, I'm gonna kill so many people, and you do. Like, it is a nice reward where it's like, I'm gonna have like a 40 kill, 20 death match, or when you get in the AT, and you're not controlling it, but you are just raining death down on people.
I played the heroes versus villains mode.
Hey, I didn't think I tried that one. What is that?
I think it was this one was set on Tatooine, and it was like a downed like transport or something. It looked like the transports that were trying to get off of Hoth. And it was downed, and so you're running underneath it and stuff. And it's just like, so you got Boba Fett, Vader, Emperor on the bad side, and then Leia, Han, and Luke on the other. And the fact that it's just like 3-on-3, and it's like you want to kill all the other heroes while you remain standing. And if one hero from each is left on each team, it's just a draw.
Oh, that sounds good.
It was kind of fun at first, and I was Luke, and like going up against Vader and just like mop the floor with him, like force pushed him off of a cliff and stuff, and just like Empire, and loved that. But then it just like started boiling down to like Vader, like the guy on the other team, like it was 1-on-1. And then Vader like jumped up on top of the transport where no one else could get because Luke was dead, and just hid up there and like just did his force like deflection lightsaber thing, and and it's just like, okay, we're just gonna run down the clock for a minute while Vader is just a complete chicken shit up there. And it's just like it basically the more time I spent with these heroes, they started to just not fit with like what's going on in those matches, like especially the smaller scale heroes versus villains ones. But it's jumping around as Luke is still pretty fun, even if it's not like, doesn't feel amazing. Like all those animations are very rigid and
But one thing I'll say is when I first started playing the game, I got a hero on Walker Assault, and I'm playing as Vader. And I go down this corridor, and there's 3 rebels in front of me, and they just open fire on me. And if you just hold block and kind of aim at them, you're just going to kill all 3 of them. But by like hour 20, people are so conditioned now that when they see someone like Vader, when you have like 3 guys run up to you, it's almost like Han Solo and the Stormtroopers.
Right.
So they're just standing there. They're like, I'm not going to fire at him.
because you'll deflect the bullets to them.
Yeah, and then they just take off like in a sprint, and you're just like force choking
That's
them or
cool.
going after them or
That's
throwing your
very
saber.
cool.
But it's like that moment where you're like, oh my God, I just turned the wrong corner.
Yeah.
It's cool. So people are starting to learn how to use them a little better. And again, I really, really like the game. Like, it's very simple. It's geared towards casual gamers, right? They don't have the deep systems, like Battlefield or Call of Duty or stuff like that. And anyone can pick it up and play it and just shoot the gun. It's not going to bounce around like a lot. If you have someone in your sights, you're going to have a chance, right?
I feel like in the beginning, everybody was saying like, "Oh gosh, it's just going to be Battlefield skin with Star Wars." But then DICE and EA were out there like, "Oh no, this is more than just a Battlefield skin for Star Wars." Now I feel like, do we just want a Battlefield skin with Star Wars? Is that the better game ultimately?
Yeah. I think for us as the gamers that really want meat to the experience, like a lot of stuff they can dig into and customize, whether it be like modular armor or stuff like that, that would have been super cool. But yeah, they just don't give you a lot to latch onto and make you want to play more. There's not a lot to fight for in this game.
What's there is pretty fun, but it just does not have legs.
So go over to a friend's place and play it. Is that the ideal way to play Battlefront?
Or I mean, unless there's a deal, if you can catch this thing on sale.
I would even say wait a year and see what it looks like with all the DLC out. There's a season pass coming out with 4 that's adding 16 more maps, so another 4 environments.
And you've got
so
a theory.
The 8 total.
You've got a theory about what.
Yeah, I think maybe I'm wrong here. EA obviously released the game right before Black Friday. Perfect time to release a new big blockbuster. But you have Force Awakens coming out after that. And my theory is that maybe this game was meant to be like original trilogy and Force Awakens together because they have that Battle of Jakku map coming out. Is a lot of the content they're sitting on stuff that they can't talk about yet. We've seen different environments in the movies, but they haven't mentioned anything outside of Jakku yet.
I would put money on no. I'd put money on this is going to be all classic original trilogy. Maybe
it's not already. I mean, you got the Battle of Jakku, which is...
But that's still set during that timeline.
Yeah, but they could show off those other planets, too.
In that time, in the classic trilogy timeline. I'm with you. But I think 2 years from now, we're going to see the new trilogy Battlefront. Like, I think they're going to save all that for the sequel, right? And
maybe
put like a single player in there.
Maybe this would just be a taste of it. But I think Reiner's got a good theory.
Or Rogue One. Maybe the last DLC is tying into the new movie that comes out next holiday. Which is classic trilogy.
They could take like a Destiny route with it too. You know what I mean? Where it's just like, this is the same core and we're just going to keep building off of this with like bigger expansions.
Yeah. So what do you want from the sequel then, Reiner? Say what, 2 years from now? Is that a safe prediction for the next Battlefront?
Yeah, I think you're totally right. It'll be like new trilogy, new stormtroopers, stuff like that. Or what do they call them? The New Order?
Yeah.
Or the First Order. New Order. And then basically DLC, I'm hoping it's like the Death Star. That seems weird. It's not here. Interiors.
Yeah.
Bespin obviously would be super cool. And then maybe a couple others that have been mentioned in the books and stuff like that. I guess those books don't exist anymore.
They don't exist, so you can't use them.
But what's in the comics, maybe? I don't know.
Okay, what is in the comics? Hey, whatever happened to that whole thing about Han Solo's wife
It's still
in the
gone.
comics?
It's still gone.
Is anything good there?
Yeah, I mean, those stories are kind of terrible, but I do like what's going on with Solo and having this kind of weird past.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I wouuld be totally opposed to like, we've been watching like Star Wars Rebels and Clone Wars and stuff. Like if Ahsoka was in there or something.
That'd be awesome.
Or Jeb.
I don't know.
Jebi.
Kanan or Ezra. Yeah, that'd be cool.
They're fun.
Yeah. So would you want a single player campaign in the next one then?
Yes, absolutely. They got to do it. I mean, what? Man, Star Wars, such a rich universe for storytelling. And Battlefield and Call of Duty, they always come with a campaign that everybody's like, it's okay.
Everybody says,
Star Wars would be so great for that.
Yeah, but I feel like everybody always just says, oh, why'd you even put a campaign in here? And it seems like if it's going to be a DICE level campaign, like people are going to say the same thing, right?
Freaking just hire J.J. Abrams, write it. He's not doing anything now. He's not doing episode 8 or 9. Yeah, I mean, seriously, like just hire a decent writer to write you a Star Wars script.
Yeah, I'm sure they will do it. I'm very curious to see what it looks like, but I remain skeptical about if it wasn't this package. I don't think it would change things radically as far as overall impressions. Oh, really?
I really do. People, I mean, on Twitter, everybody's like, I was interested, and then I heard it didn't have a campaign. They want a big Star Wars story experience. I think they're really hungry for that, too.
Visceral is going to have to give it to him with Amy Hennig's project.
We'll see what happens there.
I'm excited to see
All
that
signs point to Han Solo.
Do you think with the Han Solo movie coming out, don't you think that's doubling up on young Han Solo ground?
Yeah, it might hit at the same time.
What would be the harm in doubling up on that? Like,
I don't know.
There's no such thing as too much Han Solo.
Yeah, I think
Harrison Ford.
He's a fan favorite. Like,
I guess he's okay.
Yeah.
He's doing an all right job. All right, so 7.5 you gave it?
7.5, yep. And a lot of potential there. It just needs a lot more content and progression.
Yeah. So overall, you're a little bit lukewarm?
Yeah, just right in the middle.
Okay, great. Hey,
that's pretty funny.
Hey, Dan Tack.
I really enjoyed that
force
joke.
Neutral.
Force neutral.
Let's get into this oldie but a goodie.
Yeah?
A game we like to call StarCraft 2. Remember like 2008 when they announced this game?
Yeah, I do.
And we're all really excited to see the campaign come to a close with the Protoss storyline.
Yeah.
And remember when now it's the year 2015 and we finally got an end to the whole story?
We do have an end to the story, yes.
Okay, so I've been playing a lot of this game.
Okay.
Too much,
how
some
much?
would say. I beat the campaign,
Great.
but there's an epilogue.
There is 3 more missions.
It's just 3.
Wow.
There's a prologue and an epilogue. They're both 3 missions each. The core campaign's 19. So a total of 25 total missions.
Okay,
in this.
how is that epilogue? Is that where it goes off the rails?
That's where, yes,
Okay, because you were really hyping up like, oh, this story completely goes off the rails, and like
it does. In the
with
worst
that
way.
epilogue.
Yeah, yes. It's
okay,
awful.
because the actual campaign itself,
It's bad off
the
the
campaign.
rails?
The campaign itself is very traditional Blizzard storytelling,
Yes,
right? And
yes.
there's nothing wrong with that.
well,
That's
there
fine.
is. Yeah, we'll get into that.
We
but-
will.
But then the epilogue
is like just like the cart goes way off the track, and it's just like, please no,
How
don't
so?
ever do this. It's like Lucas prequel style. Like,
Oh.
just don't do this. Just don't. Do
So you're
this.
screaming at the screen, don't do this.
I did an
a trade
actual
dispute?
like I did a facepalm cringe at the end. Yes,
You found out that all of it was just a prequel for Overwatch?
now that would have been superior
Okay.
to what happened. Yes,
yeah, there's crossover because now there's a StarCraft 2 pro player within the world of Overwatch.
within the world of Overwatch. Yes,
Really?
yes.
Yeah, the
Wait.
character's backstory.
Diva.
Diva. She's a
bizarre.
StarCraft 2 pro player, and she has like a whole mech. And actually,
She streams her when she's like shooting people. Like she's a streamer and a pro.
It's
StarCraft
so good.
player,
and it's a
yeah.
little
It's
bit like
going too far.
it's
It
so
works.
good.
It
It's super
works.
fun.
It really
just
does
like
work.
we got to advertise our other game.
I mean, it's like almost the equivalent of like having like a game show host character or something
They
like
could do that.
you
In
know?
Overwatch, they could do anything. Like,
Make it a fictional game.
No, it's super fun.
Why?
If they can do that crossover, pack
No.
more of that crap in. That's great.
Blizzard crossovers are great, and I love to see them. So
I'm
yeah.
absolutely
I'm
with
trying to parse my thoughts on it. I think I default kind of like it, but I'm trying to
You got to play some. You got to play some, Tim. You'll like it.
Diva fault. But anyways, this campaign, the actual
this
campaign, the missions, like the whole thing with starting with StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty.
Yes.
The mission design is so good in that game.
I think so too.
And then Heart of the Swarm, I thought it was pretty good.
I thought part of this one was okay, and I think here we were also in the okay land.
I think Legacy, it's not. I think it's the weakest mission design
Yeah,
for the
I do too.
campaign of the 3. Like,
And
talk about what makes mission design
Certainly.
Yeah.
in the Blizzard
Well,
RTS is good and what's weak about it.
30 seconds. I think it's the constant variety. We've talked about it before on the podcast, but it's a Nintendo level of creativity of every mission. There's some twist on it that is completely new. It'll slowly introduce units, but not in a very ham-fisted way like it used to be. Like, hey, here's this new ranged unit. Use it 1,000 times. All right, mission over. Where it's just constantly a new novelty in each mission. Wings of Liberty was amazing with that. Legacy of the Void, I mean, so many of the missions are just, hey, there's like
There's a thing in the middle of the map. You got to protect it.
There's 2 like that.
3.
Okay. But then a lot of them, what I've noticed is like, hey, there's just like 8 objects to destroy in this map. Build up a base, Protoss base, go take them out.
To be fair, there are a few interesting ones. Especially the epilogue has an interesting one, but it also has a defend the thing in the middle one. So
there's one mission in the campaign that I liked.
yes,
Not just one, but overall, it's still fun. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
but just
it
the
is.
level of
It's-
creativity is lacking.
I mean at this point, like they're running out of. It's like kill 8 things. That's pretty boring. And it is ham-fisted the way that units are like, here's this mission, here's your new unit, make 20 of them and go kill the enemy.
Right,
That's really
right.
what it is.
But there's one mission where there's like a giant laser beam that's slowly moving in
That
this
you have
crazy
to like
pattern.
beat the laser. Yeah.
Yeah, and you have to like dodge it along the way. I thought that was really fun. There's one where you're in space, basically like a New Gettysburg style map
Yeah.
from the original StarCraft. And then you're building up on this moving platform.
And you move the platform up and down. That was
and you're
cool
shifting
too.
it around to like different mineral deposits. Like that's the kind of creativity that I feel like Wings of Liberty was packed in with. And I don't think it's rose-colored glasses because I played it again a
it's
couple of
not.
years ago, and it's still super
It's
good.
not. I agree. It was lacking there. I did like the hero missions. I always have the ones that are more focused on using hero special abilities, especially Alarak, who's my favorite now.
Okay, here's my problem with that.
Yeah, I mean he's every League in Blizzard is like written on a piece of cardboard, right? Like it's
he sounds like Chris Parnell. It's like the weirdest
sounds like Chris
character.
Pratt. I never got that, but
it's so
now I'm never
stupid.
gonna forget it. So
Okay, there's so many cliches in the StarCraft storyline.
oh yeah,
but-
totally.
Okay, Reiner, get this. There's Alarak, is that his name?
Yeah, he's Darth Vader, right? I mean,
Oh my god, I'm thinking of what is the other guy's name? Kadex.
okay,
Kadex sounds like Chris Parnell.
Sure.
But he's like this scientist guy. But he's working on like this giant, basically think of like a fusion core thing it's tied to the story and the mechanics in a way. But he's like, oh, I've been working on this giant fusion core in this lab. So I had to develop these Doc Ock arms in order to work with it. Just like taking the exact thing from Spider-Man 2 of like Doc Ock's arms so we can deal with that sun thing.
Yeah.
Just completely ripping it off.
you gotta get that solar
Does he
right
have
in
the
there, you know?
goggles and the white
Basically, he might as well.
I did like the Solarite concept. That was neat. It gave
Sure.
you incentives to do other things during the missions. You know,
Yeah,
to go out of your way.
it
That was
seems
okay.
fine.
Yeah.
I would think I
What
was
does it unlock for you?
You get a customizable like cooldowns basically that really help in missions.
Kind of like hero ability type thing.
Yeah,
You just
they're really
deploy them
powerful
over.
abilities that you can only use so often.
But the difference, it's actually more like Age of Mythology is what I noticed, because instead of being
Yeah.
tied to a unit, it's actually in the UI itself.
Right.
Yeah.
So it'll count down, but you can get some really powerful
There are
stuff.
some
Like
extremely powerful things.
amazing bombardments, or the ability to like build a pylon anywhere, which is a big deal.
Wow.
Also, I like the campaign just for fan service. It has so many of the old StarCraft 1 units that aren't in multiplayer that a lot of
does.
fans really miss. But it's like, hey, you missed Reavers, you missed Arbiters, you missed Dragoons, for the love of Christ.
Seeing Reavers back was great. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's so much fun, and they have like the same barks as StarCraft 1. So there's a ton of Protoss fan service specifically.
And
in that thing.
I really did like the way that, I was like, man, Protoss for 19 missions, that's going to be kind of boring, right? But because of the different factions that you get to use the unit configurations of, that was fun. I'm like, I love the Tal'Darim units. Like,
Right.
those were super fun.
But it is still the problem of, Blizzard's writing has never been great. And before it was like,
Go play the epilogue.
oh, that's what's okay. I'm looking forward to it, but it's like it's always just kind of sappy before with like the Kerrigan Reiner relationship.
Actually, I think it changed massively from Brood War to Wings of Liberty. Like, the story is just been completely changed and taken in different directions. Some people might like that, but I liked it better when Kerrigan was actually evil.
I'm
and,
totally
and
with
bent
you.
on revenge instead of being what they've rewritten her as and what they rewrite her as eventually.
Oh, I can't
Is she
wait.
like a Sylvanas Windrunner type? Is that what she becomes?
I mean, let's just say Blizzard loves redemption stories really hard.
Oh boy.
I got one question for you, Tack. You keep
Yeah.
bragging on the epilogue. By nature, an epilogue is setting up pretty much what's coming next,
Yeah,
right? Like, so is
Instead, this is actually just sort of closing the curtains
okay.
on all
I was
the
going to say, are we
characters.
going to be in trouble for the next one? Is if they're setting?
I
something
mean,
up?
if the next one won't include the character arcs that are ending in this one, most likely. So,
Okay. Yeah. What do you want from the future?
don't bring people back to life. Don't say this is someone and that it's not, and then change everything. You know what? Just write a story.
Just write a story.
Like, the regular story for this campaign was fine. And I've been ragging on the campaign a lot, but there's lots of other great stuff about this game.
yeah.
Which is why I did give it an 8.75, because the multiplayer is great. The multiplayer new units are awesome. The co-op multiplayer is fun.
I was
Archon mode? Is that what it's
not. I was
This is different.
confusing it. Yeah, because everybody was talking about co-op, and I know that Archon mode is part of it, where you play the same
same base?
base.
Archon mode is,
exactly.
it's the same thing as we've been doing for years, but with two people.
Right.
Controlling one base, which is cool, but that's not like a big draw for like a. Let's say you finish the campaign, you don't really want to get into competitive multiplayer because it can be very intimidating. So you've got this new mode called, well, it's not called this anymore, but it is Allied Commanders. You pick a hero unit essentially, and you play with your friend, and you get to use the special heroes' abilities and units.
And then they have
you're just like a-
There's
you're
like a
just-
progression system. You level up. You're doing missions, so you're not like fighting.
You're like an
AI.
autonomous like hero within your friend's base. as
You
they're
don't
building
actually
it out?
control a hero unit. You are the hero, and each, like, if I'm Artanis, I get a bunch of Protoss units that I have linked to my commander, and special abilities linked to my commander, and these are unlockable stuff like Call of Duty. So as I level up and progress, I get new options.
Interesting.
it's a really cool idea, and the missions that I played in co-op are actually really fun.
There's like 7 or 8 of them, I think.
Are they all kind of redesigns of previous
They,
missions?
they are.
Okay.
Whether they're not necessarily from this game, but you'll see like echoes from like Wings of Liberty and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Moved into it. But those are cool, especially, it's a great option for people who are like, I'm done with the campaign. I don't want to go get destroyed by, Zerg, so I'll just play with my friend, and we'll kick some butt and get some levels.
Right.
you know.
I was amazed jumping into multiplayer because I looked at my history. I played like 8 matches of Heart of the Swarm in multiplayer, and that's it. So Wings of Liberty.
I think
really
I
my
also
base.
played only in Heart of the Swarm. I played a lot of Wings of Liberty, yeah.
Yeah, but then jumping into this, holy Lord, did they speed it up?
Yeah, well, you start with 12 peons or drones now, right?
Automatically
So, like, yeah.
mining minerals. It's just like they
Right.
want you to expand and move.
So there's no
move.
more like 6 pool. It's
Sounds
much more rapid.
So intimidating.
It is.
It is, yeah.
It's just it makes it even.
That's
more,
what Archon mode's for. Like, you can just
Yeah.
have me do all the work, and you can look around.
I was such a, I loved like Warcraft 1, 2, and 3 so much. And like I've talked about before, but StarCraft 1 and the 3 StarCraft 2 games, I've always been like, I can't wait to play those because of the campaign, and then maybe I'll be comfortable to jump into multiplayer after that. But no matter what, every RTS, I just get comfortable with it. I play my way in the campaign, and then it feels like you can play the campaign, get familiar with it, but then like the transition to become like
It's a
literate
it's a completely different
in
game.
multiplayer is like learning a MOBA as well. It's just like the same like
It's a completely different learning experience. And like I said, both modes that they put into this multiplayer mode, like both the new multiplayer things are designed for players new to multiplayer.
Yeah,
more
I mean,
or
you
less.
can put training wheels on a stunt bike or something, or a motorcycle or something, but it's still just like if you don't know how to ride a motorcycle,
and
you're just gonna
also
kill yourself.
Blizzard's ladder system does take care of that to some extent and skill. So
Okay.
So don't be too intimidated. Also, just play with your friends, man. Like,
that's key.
totally
That's
the way
always
to go.
the key,
Right.
right?
Speaking of which, when this game came out, I had like my LAN party.
Yeah.
Nerd.
So like not
That's
many,
pretty nerdy.
Everyone's like, I already bought StarCraft. I don't want to buy it again in the new expansion. So it's tough convincing everybody. But like, got 3 people, right?
That's pretty good.
not bad,
to play
yeah.
StarCraft 2 for this pseudo
good.
LAN party, right? It's like, oh, this is going to be great. Okay, we got 3 people. Let's not go up against strangers yet. Let's do a free for all.
Okay.
So we all sit down. We had a couple drinks. Nothing too obscene. Sit down, like, all right, free for all. Legacy of the Void. Here we go.
All right.
What do these units do?
No. Digging through the menu trying to find this frickin' thing.
There's a
They
lot of
buried
options.
free for all.
There's a lot of
so
options.
deep. Dan, walk me through how you think you get to free for all, because it is effed.
You know what? I couldn't tell you since I don't play free for all.
It's effed. It's impossible. They removed it from the main menus. You have to go to you go to custom. You go to multiplayer.
All right.
Then you go to custom game,
So
which
far,
is
so
fine.
good.
Totally reasonable. Then it's a big old list of custom stuff. It's all big game hunters and all that
Big Game
garbage that's
Hunters
been
is a-
around
Hey,
forever.
Big Game Hunters is a classic.
It is a classic, sadly. But then it's like, okay, I guess we can't create our own and customize. You can create your own match, but you can't choose free for all in that. What you have to do is go to a pull down menu. You can't. You
right.
have to go down to a pull down menu, making it Blizzard maps instead of just the public popular ones. So you go to Blizzard maps, and it's another selection. No free for all, no nothing. Then you have to go uncheck. In the other menu, you have to uncheck ladder maps. Because they only have the ladder maps ranked there. So it's buried like 4 deep, then you can find free for all. They basically went from like the big announcement, remember when StarCraft 2 was announced that it's not going to have LAN support, and everybody lost their mind.
Who could forget?
And now we're to a point where they're burying free for all, like one of those basic modes in the middle of 8 sub-menus. It's garbage.
But eventually you got to build your carriers and win, right?
Well, I'm a Void Ray guy myself.
That's all right.
How many?
I can live with that.
How many hours did you spend trying to figure that out?
It was a very frustrating hour, and then eventually it's like, F it, let's just play.
And your friends just left.
Yeah.
Man,
That was it.
Left
That's
the
a drag.
friendship. They
Yeah,
exited
that
the
was it.
friendship.
Like, thanks, Ben.
Absolutely. Legacy of the Void of Friends.
That's right.
Yeah, so it was rough, but eventually it is fun. But that game has just become so technical multiplayer.
I think it's just like for me the RTS has like fallen off just as the MOBAs have taken over that space essentially.
Don't say that.
So I mean it's the truth.
I keep playing this and imagining like young MOBA players, that young MOBA community that are all huge fans of the Game Informer show. But like, imagine being raised on MOBAs and then going into your first RTS. I feel like it'd be liberating. Like, I can create a whole town.
It'd be weird.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's a different beast. I wonder if it's a similar thing where it's like people that just like, where are my turn-based RPGs? You know, just like, and everything's just real time. And
But we
like
have-
becoming more action focused.
We have a lot of turn-based RPGs now. Like those are back in a huge way.
Yeah, Tim, shut up.
Like what?
Like we had Pillars of Eternity. Well,
Oh, you're talking about
sort
like,
of turn-based.
I guess I'm talking.
Final Fantasy VII or
Divinity
something like that.
Original
Yeah,
Sin.
stuff like JRPG
okay,
classics
okay.
and stuff like that. Sorry.
Bravely Default. I
We
guess
still
you
have
do.
those. Etrian Odyssey games getting cranked out every year.
Sure.
Those are good.
I'm just saying, like what they used to be. There's people that aren't willing to keep up with it or whatever.
Yeah.
but-
Sure.
But the pull of multiplayer, like I definitely feel it again, especially having finished the campaign now, where it's like I feel like I can get fully competent. I think I'm
let's do
pretty
it.
okay now. I want to play with you, Dan.
Let's do it.
Let's do a video
Let's go
on
diamond.
GameInformer.com. You jumping into competitive waters and see what happens.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
Dan,
let's see him get torn apart.
I'm totally,
I would
no,
love-
We'll win for a while.
Let us know if you'd watch this.
hang on, Dan. Who would win, me versus you? Because we have kind of an RTS rivalry.
We
here.
do, and you did it definitely impressed me with your Age of Mythology cheese. So.
That one game I've been playing for
Hey,
10 years.
wait, cheese. I've played fighting games against you,
He used a
Dan.
god ability. Okay. It
Oh, I used a basic component of the game.
I've played fighting games against you,
Yeah.
Dan, and you
Yeah.
used some things that some people would call cheese, but
Yep.
since studying fighting genre, I understand there's no cheese. There's just weak defenses.
You're right. You're right. I wasn't ready. All right, but StarCraft is a game that I know a lot better than Age of Mythology. So
Are you really good at StarCraft?
I'm not really good, but I'm good.
It's
It's crazy to make that kind of claim with StarCraft when you've got like diamond players, right? But
Right.
I was platinum in Wings.
Really?
So yeah.
Platinum and Wings. So I feel like,
Is that a flight, like an airline rewards thing? That's
right.
What's happening here?
but with StarCraft, like it sucks to go from the relaxed world of Age of Mythology where it's so carefree relatively
is.
now to this where it's like you need to watch professional replays. You need to get down to the exact build order. You need to be down to seconds. Like you need to move.
Right.
It's just
And I
such a crazy.
And I'm
rhythm.
definitely not in that zone anymore. So
Okay.
I think it'd be a good match.
We got to watch this. We got to have this happen.
I'd like to do it. Tim,
We are doing it.
there's a mode.
done.
There's a mode that I found probably when I was digging around for free for all, buried in like the options.
You're really salty about
subclass
free-for-all.
B.
Yeah, it's a very specific frustration.
It's free for all. It's not simple and basic. It's like it is the most basic thing. It's not that specific.
I'm just saying you are specifically passionate about this one thing.
He's really
true.
salty.
You know
about
what
it.
probably happened at Blizzard is they're just like sitting there. They have their wall of like, like code going on a TV screen, and all of a sudden like a alarm goes off, and they're like, "Whoa, someone just found free for all in our game. Like, are we prepared for this?"
Oh
were-
god,
they were
that's
ready.
still in the code.
It's
somewhere?
basically war games.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
It's Blizzard headquarters.
Didn't expect anyone to ever get in there.
I was clicking over to the arcade. I don't know if you remember this. Like years ago, there's always a story like, oh, they made a Final Fantasy clone in StarCraft arcade mode, or like, oh, they made a World of StarCraft,
Right.
StarCraft arcade mode, really flexible. But I found one near the top actually, for popularity. And it was just called The Thing.
Oh,
Like,
cool.
ooh, I'm listening.
Did they basically make it so that you're having to like guess who's infected and
Yeah.
stuff like that?
So I played it, and like it's crazy because they have like images from the movie. They have the theme, just like the dun, like the very
Right.
basic Thing theme, just looping underneath it, and you're just going through this base in Antarctica, from like overhead StarCraft perspective, and then it has another group of people in there, and it's all chat, and you're just trying to figure out who's the Thing, who's infected, which is a great idea. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Except that they populate the entire base basically with thinglings or like zombies that you have to kill. Which just, I don't need that. Just put us in a room, let us figure this out. But it's really fun when you are the Thing, because it's one of your special abilities is to transform into it. So you can be like, just go like explore, like, hey, let's shoot down these zombies and get these items over here, and then run down this hallway, and then when it's just you two alone, then turn the Thing and just wreck this guy.
And is there like a fog of war so people can't tell?
Yep.
All right, that's really cool.
That's
It
a cool
reminds me-
idea.
I was watching some YouTube videos of like, Minecraft / CS:GO mods where it's like, trying to find out who the traitor is, and you go and like the person that's getting shot basically has like a couple seconds to be like, oh my god, Ben's the shit, and then
it's like a
Then
Gary's
cuts
mod. There's a Gary's mod. Do you
Yeah.
know that? What's that game within Gary's mod that's exactly like that?
I have no idea, but I know you like Avalon, right?
It is
Yeah,
a lot like
it's just
Avalon.
So Avalon, you can play Werewolf and Mafia, like two very basically Avalon games, right? You can play those in StarCraft 2 and many other games.
yeah, it's great.
It's great. I'm
We need a
waiting
more
for-
polished version of that.
That's what I want. I want the next Call of Duty to have that mode, because it's the best idea, and no one's just polished the crap out of it yet.
It'd be a really good like downloadable game.
I thought you said Werewolf in the Mafia.
that would
was
be
like,
that
that
would be
sounds like
crazy.
the craziest
Yeah,
story.
Werewolf, the
That's my
Werewolf
favorite
Mafia.
big band.
That's the next big game. That's the next big game, Reiner.
What really sucked is the first time I was the Thing, because when I was just a human, I kept talking to everybody like, how does it work when you're the Thing? I have no idea how this works. And then I was the Thing for the first time, and noticed like, oh, it's a transform button, okay. And so then I just like, when I was the Thing, I was just like, hey, where is everybody? Want to meet up? Let's go group together. And everyone's like, great idea, okay. And so then I went into like the living room space, and there's just like two other guys in there. And I'm like, hey guys, what do you guys want to go do? And they both just unload on me immediately.
Because you
they were
asked
gonna
to be
do?
in a space.
What did you
should've-
think they were
You
gonna
should have
do?
kept on asking how do you be the
I
Thing?
did ask it one more time. But then so then I got to them and I was like, how'd you guys know it was the Thing? And they're like, oh, we just didn't like you. We didn't know that you were actually the Thing. We just shot the crap
makes
out of you
sense.
for no
Wait,
reason.
Tim's right though. It's like, hey, let's meet up here.
Yeah. Hey guys, you want to?
Yeah.
Maybe we can all tie ourselves to a couch. That's a great idea. Here, I'm totally fine.
Perfect. So 875, you gave this baby.
Like I said, outside of like I did not like the story, and some of the missions were certainly repetitive. And
Right.
Lacked was like luster, but overall, hey, it's StarCraft 2. It's still here.
It's still here.
It's like the only relevant RTS I think today.
Can I
So
ask, how is it? Are they doing $40 a pop for each expansion? Okay.
this is standalone, by the way, so you can
Right.
just get this and
that's
you have
nice.
everything. Yeah,
It's really, really great. And so wait, you can just get this. Can you play the old campaigns then?
probably not. No.
Okay.
I know we got other things to talk about, but like before we move on from this, like, how do you feel in hindsight about what I feel like was a pretty like unconventional way to release this game? Like, how do you feel like it delivered like StarCraft 2?
What was unconventional about releasing it?
Just breaking it up.
Yeah, 3 parts over what 7 years?
Yeah, it was a long time coming, so it makes sense to me to make them separate releases like this.
But then why? But do you think it worked for StarCraft? You
yeah,
feel
I
like
do.
it like enough new content came out every year? Like, would you have rather had like one big game that was maybe like a half the size of what the 3 of them were at
mean,
once?
No, I mean there's definitely enough content for this to like warrant its own.
Okay.
It's its own game, more or less.
It was frustrating just because I play Protoss and I love Protoss, except in the story.
to not
I don't-
get your
I don't like
chapter.
hearing them talk. Yeah, but not get my chapter. And then like, it warmed the cockles of my heart to start this game and have like the character race select in the campaign, which they used to have in Brood War, like choose anyone you want, and to have like all three finally next to each other, like finally I can click on that GD Protoss option and get this thing rolling. So for me, it's been such a long wait to finally play the race that I know in multiplayer that it's been a little bit frustrating.
They're my race too, so yeah.
Yeah, so ultimately they don't wrap up the story in a satisfying way. Is that what you're getting at?
I would certainly say no, and I can't wait for you to play those 3 missions, and we'll talk about
God,
it.
I wish I would have gotten around to that. Another thing I wish I would have gotten around to, I was planning on it last night, but it turns out that last mission of the campaign is really hard and it took forever.
It is. The epilogue missions are also are harder.
Oh, man.
They're tough.
But I was planning on playing this last night, didn't get around to it, but Game of Thrones finale, Telltale,
Yes.
Reiner. What'd you think of that thing?
My headline was a bloody cliffhanger of a finale, so it really isn't a send-off in any capacity. And I don't know what I was thinking. Like, Telltale, obviously, I guess maybe what I was thinking is it's wedged between 2 seasons of the show and the books. What is it, 3 and 4 or 4 and 5? I don't remember where it takes place.
3 and 4.
But I guess I thought Telltale would just do 1 season. This was 6 episodes. It's longer than anything else they'd done.
It's going
But
forever.
they are planning on, they are like,
the story of House Forrester is not complete.
it's not done. It doesn't end.
Nor will
So-
it be.
I feel like that would an appeal. Like, why couldn't they just pick up some other house or something for another season and like just tie this one off?
Yeah, and even in Telltale's vein, it seems like, man, it almost seems like there should be an episode 7 here. Like Walking Dead, the way that story ended was there was a lot of closure there, yet some mystery to what might happen in the future.
We talk about it in the interview coming up.
And this one is just very much, it's going to continue. Like there are things in motion that are not going to end.
So how many episodes do you think the Game of Thrones series is going to go? 15, 20?
20, probably. Yeah, if they can keep it going.
Right.
I think a lot of people were pretty harsh critics-wise on this one. Like, I think a lot of people were pretty upset with how Telltale handled this.
That's really
This
frustrating.
finale.
I feel like the entire series, I think you've been more warm on it than I have, but I liked it out of the gate, and then it's just blah.
Yeah.
Like, things eventually kind of sort of happen, but for a beloved franchise like Game of Thrones, I just feel like it's so mundane.
That
and
first
boring.
episode hit such a high note, and it felt like they were kind of, from what I played of it, like kind of struggling to hit that sort of shock again.
Yeah.
In a series that's known for its shocks, I mean, if you can't maintain that and keep taking risks,
Right.
yeah.
And that's not to say that there aren't conclusions in this. Like, some conflicts that started in episode 1, like you're talking about, do wrap up here, right? But one of the coolest things about it, and reason why I think you should play this, Hanson, is they have a lot of different variations and permutations in what you can do. It's not all leading to one point like they usually do, right? Like, I could totally have a different House Forrester than you could at the end of your episode. And it's going to be interesting to see how Telltale handles that in the next one. Because I guess Walking Dead Season 2 kind of ends in that way, too. There's like 3 branches, right?
Right.
Like, are they just going to wrap those up and say time has passed? This one, it's very different in that. You're going to have a very different cast of characters. And maybe not very, but, maybe 2 or 3 characters might be different or missing, or, how are they going to handle that moving forward?
Go to a new house.
Right.
I don't like any of these people anymore.
Oh, I like them. I like
Let me-
Roderick. I like Mira.
Let me play one of those giant dudes
Yeah.
just hanging out.
Yeah, that sounds great. Just sharpening a spear in the back of the
Something-
hut.
That sounds like a
go
really
north
fun
of the,
time.
North of the wall and just explore that area for a while or
Well,
something.
that's the setting, right? Got to find that North Grove.
Yeah, the North Grove. They wrapped that up. That mystery is solved. You see what's happening there, but obviously the story there is still continuing.
I remember last time you were on this podcast, I believe, talking about this game. You were very worried because, episode 6 is called Ice Dragon.
I remember
if they go
this.
the direction that I think they're going to go.
Yeah.
So do they go that direction?
Well, I'll just spoil this little thing because it's
Whoa.
stupid and it's in the first 10 seconds of the game.
Okay.
The Ice Dragon is a constellation.
Ah!
Okay.
So it's like they use that. It's like a Indiana Jones type of puzzle.
Sure.
Like, okay, it's going to be here.
So
Where's
would you
this tree? Okay, it's there.
Will you officially apologize for being so worried about it then?
No, I mean, don't call something the Ice Dragon.
So it's like
Game of
if in the
Thrones.
first 5 minutes of the new Star Wars movie, someone's alarm clock went off and it was just the Force theme from Star Wars, and they hit it and well, technically the Force awakens. And now I'm gonna
That's
go.
really good.
My concern
It's
was
the
like
best joke I've ever said.
It might be.
my concern was like the dragons are so special in Game of Thrones. Like Dany, if Telltale just added one to the universe to canon, I would have been like, cut these guys off. They're done. Like,
Right,
it's no longer canon.
I don't think they could have gotten away with that.
No.
And then House Forrester has their own dragon. Boo.
His name's Lou.
But it is worth playing. I mean, especially if you've done 5 episodes, don't stop now. I mean, you're right there at
So
the end.
you're
and
in
it
for
goes
20
by,
then. You're in for the long haul.
I guess that's true. At least season 1 through, and so the whole of that experience.
Polish.
But it's written pretty well. There's a couple of moments where there's some logic jumps where things that you're doing, choices you're making, don't line up with this one path they want you on.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be like, oh, we're doing this. And it's like, no, we're doing this. And you're like,
Right.
wait, we just agreed on this 10 seconds ago, and now it's completely different. Stuff like that. So,
Sounds like StarCraft 2.
wow. Okay. But I gave it a 7.5.
There we go.
Again, just like Battlefront, it's a C, a solid C. It's right there. Hopefully they can get this back on track, and not worry so much. I think one thing that they're really missing is they really latch on to it's 0 to 100 at any given moment when there's tension. They never let the characters really become characters. They're just kind of ciphers going through, doing these big events, big battles, conflicts that someone's going to live or die. Yeah, just let me get to know these characters. Take your time, slow down a little bit.
No breathing room ever.
Yeah.
So, hey, speaking of constellations and StarCraft, Tim, do you want to give a quick update on Rebel Galaxy?
Oh, yeah.
You reviewed that game.
Yeah, that game came out a month ago.
Perfect.
It's still due out for PS3, or I'm sorry, PS4 next year. But yeah, it's basically like looping back to Star Wars. It's kind of the way I kind of talked about it was, hey, you ever wonder what Han Solo's up to when he's not doing the exciting stuff on screen? And it's just sort of, I think, trying to really satisfy that fantasy of like, what would being like a traitor be like? Like, oh, I guess I'm kind of like, have this big ship it's interesting. One of the most interesting things about the game is that it's all takes place on a 2D plane, but it's a space like trading / combat
Just like
game.
real space, yeah.
Yeah, and so there's no y-axis to worry about. But you have this kind of lumbering ship that you're just slowly going out, doing missions, getting credits, go to pick up that thing and bring that over to that other space station.
Is it like my beloved Euro Truck Simulator?
I have not played that game.
Okay.
So I'm not sure. Is Europe in space? I can't ever remember.
so.
Sometimes it is.
Is it really? Okay.
Yeah.
Sputnik. And basically, you actually, you know what? Isn't Russia and Asia?
It's split. It's also part of it's in Europe.
I'm always super confused about that.
The Ural Mountains kind of divided in that area.
the
so
Ural
part of it is
Let's
actually,
talk about Russia. Basically, and then other parts of it, like you're taking that money, those credits, and buying turrets or broadside cannons and hull upgrades and stuff, and like a laser that you can hit with the space bar, and you have to basically. It reminds me of Assassin's Creed Black Flag, where like you're charging up cannons on the side of your ship and trying to angle your ship so that big like capital ships will come on the other side of it and shoot it, and then you'll hire a mercenary from the bar, and then he'll be fighting like the little fighter pilots and stuff around you.
Sounds great.
It does sound really cool, but I just felt like repetition set in pretty quickly for me, where to the point where you're just trying to get more laser turrets and stuff on your ship, and there's this very thin storyline about your aunt who used to be like a legendary space trader or something and left you this ship. But so much of the game takes place in menus, or it's either just like menus or combat, or just like traveling through space. And sometimes it'll be like a distress signal when you're going to light speed and traveling from spot to spot. It reminded me of like Elite Dangerous a little bit, where you just see numbers coming at you, and that number to that planet or that space station is getting smaller. There's like a stock market, like a what was it called? A commodities market, where you're just like, oh, well, these are selling pretty cheap here, so I could buy a bunch of them and bring them over there. But I didn't really have fun with that numbers game and like playing that market. But if you're into like really a more nitty-gritty, slower-paced sim side of space combat, it looks cool. The visuals are really cool. The sound effects are great. I liked some parts of combat. I thought that it delivered that experience of, like if you're controlling like a space battleship, basically. And yeah, I do think the visuals are really cool. The explosions look neat. Some of the voiced characters, some play out like kind of BioWare, like KOTOR conversations, but not of much consequence.
So what would you end up giving this one?
Give this one a 7.7 or 7.5. I
7.5. Join me, man.
That's right.
Keyboard stuck.
There's a lot of middle ground there. I could see how some people would be really into that, but I just didn't find it super engaging.
Right.
It sounds like Star Control 2 meets Assassin's Creed Black Flag meets Star Trek.
Yeah. There's a little bit more Star Trek in it than you might think.
Meets boring.
Just maybe not my kind of game. I thought I got it pretty repetitive.
Okay. That's fair.
Yeah.
And you said you're looking for your aunt?
Yeah, your Aunt Juno.
Space
What is it like? Okay, mother, no. Father, no. Grandma, no. Grandfather, no.
Yeah.
Son, daughter, no. Aunt. Just have it be the
Who
aunt.
hasn't had a
she's-
missing aunt?
The one cool thing is that they speaking of StarCraft, they kind of hit like this StarCraft note where it's like sort of what's the word I'm thinking of? Like kind of like a country like trucker music, like that twang.
Firefly.
Yeah, Firefly. That's it.
Oh,
you know,
nice.
like that sort of stuff playing alongside of it. You know, maybe I haven't seen all of Firefly, so maybe that's what they're trying to hit home
I think they
really
totally
hard,
are,
too.
yeah.
And if that's the case where you just like want to listen to that sort of twangy music and fly through space, you're kind of a space trucker.
Reminds me of Richard, also a story about a space trucker, which is a really fun 2D platformer puzzler thing that no one ever talks about from years and years ago.
And someone out there started a petition so Tim can watch Firefly and
Yeah.
Serenity.
What do I have to make it like? Like 8
I don't know.
episodes
That's how
or
we do this,
something?
right?
Yeah, it's super short, man.
It's like 8 or 10 and then a movie.
I'm gonna start a Kickstarter.
It's so good.
Start a Kickstarter.
for people to help me hit the button. I can already afford my Netflix subscription. I just need people to help me find the button.
Yeah, no, that really sounds good. Speaking of repetitive, I checked out the Nintendo Badge Arcade on 3DS.
Oh,
I don't
that
know what
looks
that
like
is.
a ton of fun.
It actually is cool. I ended up liking
I
it a
am
lot.
so stoked to play that game.
Is that sarcasm?
I get to, like-
That one is sarcasm.
I move a crane to collect badges and then I look at them. Right? That's the concept here.
Yeah, Dan.
I'm
he's smiling.
I am so behind this game.
Dan, you're radiant right now.
Yeah.
I could loan you my 3DS and you can play it. if
I've
you
got a
want.
3D.
What is there to look forward
In
to in
fact,
it?
like
Hang on, Dan Tack's going to tell us, Tim.
as soon as I get out of here, I am going to play that on my DS.
Run, don't
Yeah.
walk, Dan
I will
Tack.
run. I will run.
Hope you get tripped, buddy.
Oh, I'm gonna fall right into some badges. That's what's gonna happen.
So it's a crane
Do we
game.
need some stinking badges?
It's an interesting example of Nintendo going free to play. I mean, there was the Rusty's Real Deal Baseball from last year, maybe the year before, which is like
Let's make a deal.
it's exactly where you get to like have conversations with this guy to like lower the real world prices.
It's interesting.
They also had Steel Diver, that free to play version of it, which just was terrible. But Nintendo Badge Arcade, I actually will defend. I think it's interesting. Like it's there's a cartoon pink rabbit that's hosting it. The animation of the rabbit's really good. The writing's actually really funny as this
writing.
rabbit's like setting. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I've actually, Dan, I've seen like screenshots of people like sharing jokes about this thing that's like
Yeah.
very fourth wall breaking.
right.
It's pretty funny.
It is surprisingly
Okay.
good. Also, I will completely defend it because you can go in there and not spend any money, and it's basically just a crane game, all set up for a crane game, where you can pick up little pictures of cute Nintendo characters, which you then can like put on your 3DS screen, which is like on your home icon screen, which is okay. But what's great is that you can attach them to folder icons. So if you have a ton of crap on your 3DS and you have it all arranged in folders, you want to make the folders look pretty, just download this free game and you can totally do it. And you get free plays in the future, and it rotates out the different badges.
In
and
the
things you
future,
can,
yeah, how often can you do a free badge grab?
I don't know exactly. But-
Where's the hook? What do you pay for if you want more badges?
No, if you want to just actually play it in the future. So you have like a couple of free plays in the beginning, and then if it's like, oh, insert $1, we'll give you 5 more crane grabs. But like, it's super easy to actually grab these badges.
So let me try to like absolutely boil this down. Are you basically like paying for a chance to unlock like PlayStation 4 themes, sort of? It's all just
A
these
little
aesthetic
bit.
things that are in your
Yes.
menus.
Yes, that is basically it.
Okay.
It's all menu stuff, but it's fun to go in there and check every day to be like, oh, what's going to be in the crane game today? Like, oh, they have a Splatoon character, or they have a cool Animal Crossing character this time, and like, oh, if you want to chip in $1, you can get it. You can decorate your menus with it. I liked it, and I got to nerd out and like reorganize all my 3DS stuff on that homepage and put cool badges, all the folders and stuff.
So you really like the end result. It wasn't so much because I'm more fascinated by like the means to the end than the end themselves.
Right.
But you like both parts of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a simple crane game, but I think the presentation.
So when
is-
are you going
is
to play it again? When are you going to put some cash in there?
every time I boot up my 3DS, I bet I'll go in there to see like, oh, what could I possibly
Right.
win?
Now, what did you give Badge Arcade?
I gave it a 7.5, I do believe.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
keyboard stuck. No, but like, no, really, like, are you going to put money into this? Because like,
I totally will. If there's like an obscure Nintendo character that I could get as a badge, I saw they had
The Windfish becomes available.
exactly. They had Rhythm Heaven characters. I haven't checked on it, but I think that was today or yesterday they had them, and I missed it. But like, I would totally pay to have a weird Rhythm Heaven character on like the cover of one of my folders for $1. Totally, take it, Nintendo.
Okay.
Take it. Take
all right,
it.
you know what? I'm gonna, I was not. I'm still not sold on this, but I'm gonna give it a try.
I'm gonna try it.
Yeah.
Dude, I recommend it to everybody.
All right.
You guys want to talk about anything? Tim, has anything been catching your fancy out there?
Nothing that we can't get into. There's some stuff that I want to talk about, but I think we can get it in emails.
Okay. Hey, real quick before we go to emails, we should talk about the news of the decade. News of the century.
What?
News of the millennia.
News of the millennia.
That broke last Thursday, right when our podcast was airing.
Oh, Cloud. Cloud and
Smash?
Yeah, it's Cloud
Bros?
Strife and Smash Brothers. It's amazing.
No one saw this coming. Like the Reddit thread,
It's been a
everybody's
while.
guessing every character ever except Cloud.
Right.
Well, I think people had ruled it out because Cloud's known for his PlayStation appearances.
Exactly. It's insane.
But
so, like,
Final Fantasy Explorers is coming to Wii U.
yeah,
right?
but it doesn't have that art
Or
style. Like, the
3DS.
art
Well,
style is
And
like
Cloud was in like Theater Rhythm, and wasn't he? He's in some
He's in
Kingdom
everything.
Hearts that were in Nintendo consoles, right?
But
Yeah.
it's the same as Snake, right? Like, yeah, Snake was in Twin Snakes or whatever on Nintendo platform, but he's been in a different camp for a long time.
Well,
right?
but he was also like Metal Gear and Metal Gear 1 was on NES as well, so I guess. And then there's the Game Boy Color Metal Gear game. So like Snake had some.
there's
longer
some, but like this
connections,
model
too.
of Cloud, that's like Kingdom Hearts. He's probably wearing some crap, some shawl or some
he has like
nonsense.
one wing and
Exactly. Yeah, some sort of one-winged
Right.
angel garbage. But like it's the actual like good-looking PlayStation style, not the polygonal, which would have been awesome, but like a good PlayStation model, classic version of Cloud that's going to be in Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
Just absolute dream come true.
If you want a statue of him, this is the Cloud you want.
If you had the
Cloud amiibo.
It's got to be
Yeah,
coming.
right?
my God.
Yeah, I'm sure
that'd
that'll
be
never
crazy.
happen.
There's a Dan, work on your tone. I can't read you, dude. You're just it's like,
Watch that tongue, or we'll watch it for you, Dan Tack.
All right.
I just
I'm
can't,
real concerned.
I can't get my head around you. I sat down with you for 30 hours and we played all of Dark Souls.
We did.
I still don't feel like I really understand what you're.
We need to do another game then.
Yeah, you're right. What's coming out?
Xenoblade Chronicles X. Just play through that with Dan.
Oh,
Maybe
man.
let's crack that shell by the
That
end
is
of it.
going to be that would be a real humdinger.
I think a dinger and but you know, like one thing that I was gonna say was with Cloud, he's like on the top 5 of everyone's like dream character list for Smash. Like who's left? You know?
That's it.
Well, no.
I mean, Snake.
I'd say like Dracula or Alucard or a Belmont.
Yeah,
like
a Belmont would be
Castlevania
awesome.
If you're in
character.
some dorky bat crap, maybe, but like outside of that,
What'd you
there's,
say?
there's not
Hey,
really.
Ben, what did you say?
You heard me.
Dorky bat crap?
It's called Guano. But I get, honestly, Cloud, I never would have thought it'd happen.
Their support for that game is fantastic, by the way.
It's good.
Nintendo, like, you know, everyone laughing like at the beginning of this generation, like they don't get online still. Man, they're doing great with DLC.
Yeah,
From
absolutely.
Mario Kart to Splatoon to Smash Brothers.
They've really
done a great
supported it,
job.
and I think that their prices are pretty fair for what they pack in there, and like they're doing a great job.
And it's all meaningful stuff. It's not like this weird garbage like a new mission in Assassin's Creed that nobody's ever going to play, and it doesn't really feel connected. Like there's no connected tissue.
Yeah.
Unless the new mission starts Cloud Strife.
It's
Right.
Well, I mean,
It's like,
now has it been like a year of continued support for Smash? Like almost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And they're capping it all off this December. They're gonna have the big final Smash Direct. Probably reveal 1 or 2 more characters.
And then do you
Awesome.
think they'll announce like a definitive edition? Do you think that that's not normally Nintendo's style? I don't think to do like all right, we've released a bunch of like a game of the year type.
They didn't do it for Mario Kart, and it's been, what, 6-7 months since
Yeah.
then?
Also, they're having a bundle coming up with the Wii U. I think it's like a Black Friday bundle where it has Splatoon and Smash in it. And I think if they would have done it, they would have done it for that big push.
Yeah.
But
Huge.
maybe down the road, maybe like
yeah.
if with the NX port of Smash, if they ever make that or something like that, they'll make that version. But you guys want to move on to emails?
Yeah.
Great.
Welcome back to the Game Informer Show. We have some emails. If you have a question for us, you should send an email to podcast@gameinformer.com, and then we'll read it. Maybe we choose the best one of every week, and we give it the email of the week reward, and we send you a little thank you in the mail.
It's a dustpan filled with dust from the Game Informer floor.
I thought it was one of my shirts.
It's one of Dan's shirts that we use to dust the floor, but
Dust
he doesn't
Dan.
need it anymore. But you know, another man's dust trash might be your dust treasure. So speaking of dust treasure, this is Enzo writing in. Hello there. What do you guys think about good and bad playthroughs of games with choices? I was talking with some friends about Mass Effect 2, and someone said they got the best, quote-unquote, best ending as everyone survived the suicide mission. I disagreed and said that the fact that during my mission, the fact that Thane, one of my favorite characters, died added so much more weight to my story. I thought of it like Game of Thrones. The fact that characters you love can die makes for a better story. What are your thoughts on good and bad endings? Do you think people worry too much about min-maxing their playthroughs sometimes and miss the story that's being told? Cheers, Enzo.
100%. Enzo, you are a brilliant man.
scared me
I
just
could
now.
not.
Yeah,
I
that's
could not
pretty terrifying.
agree more. It frustrates me so much when people are like, "Oh, gotta let everybody survive." Like that's not interesting. Like
No.
Garrus is my man. He
Well,
is my favorite character. And
is
at
he?
the end of Mass Effect 2, a swarm of bugs carried him away, and I watched him die. It was amazing, and I'll
Okay.
never forget that moment.
Here's the thing, though. Like, if you're playing the game without a strategy guide and you have everyone survive, I think that is just as meaningful as if you have someone die. But if you're playing the game with a strategy guide and you're intentionally like going through it so you keep everyone alive, you're doing it wrong. You should not be playing a choice-driven game with a strategy guide.
You seem like the type of guy that would reload if somebody died, though.
No. Really? I talk about that in my Mass Effect reviews. I lost 3 people in that battle. And that carried on. Like, that was emotional. Like, that carried on into Mass Effect 3 for me.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing, and it loops back to, like, think about something like Last of Us. Like, what if there had been multiple endings there, and they were left with, like, you were left with thinking, like, is this a good or a bad ending? And, like, did I get the best ending? It's something that was, like, the Silent Hill series has been like that, where you'll see most of the game, but you just didn't satisfy these weird little conditions that are supposed to make it good. Sometimes good can mean more complete, but more often than not, it means that things wrapped up with a nicer bow. Like things just ended a little bit on a sweeter note, and I guess I hate the fact that a happy ending can be considered a good ending, because good is so subjective, and especially like with narratives. I love ambiguous endings, and usually those are like the bad endings in games.
For sure. Go ahead.
No, they're just usually like stamps, like you didn't complete the game the way it was supposed to be completed. So if you enjoyed that ending, it wasn't the true ending.
Yeah. Another thing that's so frustrating with having these options, the Mass Effect series, I don't know if you guys have this problem, but like I really, really want to replay the entire Mass Effect trilogy, but it bothers me to know that I'm going to make different choices. Like I like having my canonical Shepard playthrough in my mind, and the idea of replaying this thing that I love, it's like my favorite series from last gen, I'm going to shatter that, and it's really troubling.
You should just write down your most vivid memories of what you did in your first playthrough, so that you like can keep them straight,
and then just deliberately recreate them.
No, I was going to say, like, don't try to do that. That sounds terrible.
Yeah.
Try to embrace a new one, a new
canon.
Yeah,
okay.
for sure.
Could be.
I mean, it makes our jobs as critics really difficult, right? Like, a good choice might be better than the bad path in a game, right? Like, you got to go through and see a lot of that stuff twice as a critic. Or maybe people's enjoyment, just not even on a critical scale, but just your enjoyment of it could be very different than your friends, just because maybe a thread is better written in the other one, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think developers really walk a troubled line with these things in making both of them seem just as important, or just as satisfactory, right? Whether that's with the death of a character giving you emotional resonance, or if a big success giving you that thrill of victory. Like you really got to kind of balance those.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Enzo. Next one here is from Scott from Boston. I'm loving Fallout 4 despite never having played a Fallout game before. So just push through if you need to eventually. So just push through. Eventually, it clicks. But I'm curious. I need some tips on how to survive the wasteland. I enjoy the show, and thank you, Scott. I pulled this one just because, selfishly, I didn't get to talk about Fallout last week. I couldn't physically really talk about Fallout, but
Nice.
I've had more time to dig into it in the last week. I thought it might be a cool way to just kind of like, hey, we've had a little bit more time with the game. If there's anything we've learned, I want to see if you guys had some tips to give to Scott here.
Is it a hard game?
No.
It depends on where you are. If you go to the wrong spot
Yeah.
too early, like you can get slaughtered. Like, I wandered in this house and there's a death claw. Like, I clearly am not ready for this.
Death claw. The biggest tip, for people that are new to games like this is just save often, right? There's a quick save that is super handy, and that is going to be your lifeline through that game. Because you could warp into a zone and someone might hit you with a rocket a second later, and I kid you not, like a second later, like you just don't even have your bearings yet,
and you can accidentally
die.
You can and be careful with that too, because I save just absolutely compulsively, and I was saving like one of my first encounters with super mutants. Like super mutants pack a pretty powerful punch early on, and I saved when they were like, yeah, absolutely. Say that 10 times fast. You'd have to be a mutant. If you take it, I was going to take a turn and hit a. Are you all right, Dan? You look like that pained you.
Yeah, I don't
that honestly looked like you.
I
had
am
been
not going to make it
stabbed
after
in the
that
gut.
one. That was.
But I was going to take a turn and hit this, like, battle the super mutant. And there's this weird thing that happens where you save, and like actually when that save kicks in is like a couple seconds down the line. So you might save yourself into a death loop, basically.
Yeah. Save cautiously,
yes.
Save religiously.
Right. I'm with you on that. Another thing I've started to do recently, I was just having a conversation with Cork and talking about like, my VATS numbers aren't right where I want them to be, so I'm putting a lot of money or points into perception. But shooting things in the legs that can't shoot you is very smart. I tend to just go straight for the head for some reason.
Yeah.
So like ghouls are way more limber than they've ever been. Mirelurks will sneak up on you. If you shoot them all in one of their legs, they'll just not be able to move for a while, and it's perfect.
Just bringing back your Resident Evil 4 skills.
Yeah, exactly. It made me think about that actually. Another thing that Cork's had a lot of success with, and I'm saving up for, is there's an Idiot Savant perk. So if you want to I don't think there's a level cap in Fallout 4, but if you want to experience as much of the perks and the cool stuff that you can do with them as quickly as possible, as long as you have 5 points into intelligence and 5 points into luck and don't have that many points in intelligence, you can get the Idiot Savant perk, which is 3 times XP awarded randomly. So I think sometimes this kill will get you 3 times experience, or handing in this quest will give you 3 times the experience. And Cork's in the upper 30s.
Yeah.
And he was telling me that he got almost a level and a half to 2 levels from one quest. And so that would help you kind of unlock more things early on.
This isn't a tip, and we don't need to derail too much, but are you enjoying the game?
Oh yeah, I've been having a weird time with it. I've really been enjoying it, but it's just so odd because I've talked about it multiple times in here. I beat Fallout 3 for the first time earlier this year, and now Fallout 4, just jumping into it, it feels so similar. It's so crazy similar. I'm disappointed that that Diamond City Radio has 80% of the same songs, because I love listening to those songs. But there's other parts of that are just so much. The companions are so much better. I'm in love with Nick Valentine, who is a detective with a little bit of a twist that you find. He's got an interesting backstory. I'm loving the stuff the storyline that they had in, I think it was in Rivet City, or it started in Rivet City, where it's one of the synthetic dudes that's the replicated man, I think it's what it's called in Fallout 3. There's way more stuff with synths in Fallout 4, and I really enjoy that stuff. It's very Terminator-y.
Mm-hmm.
I'm enjoying that. Some of the base building stuff is pretty cool. I love the weapon customization. That's another tip, is I don't know if they point you towards weapon crafting that explicitly early on, but that has been really satisfying. The devil's in the details with a lot of the things in Fallout 4, where it's oh, well, I need more oil and gears to make this one weapon that I really want, this upgrade. And you can put a little magnifying glass, and it will call those things out when you're looting through the environment, and you'll have one next to it oh, this fan has this component in it that I need. And so I know to grab these fans, and eventually you can upgrade that so that those objects actually glow in the environment, which is just this simple user experience thing that helps so much. So I've been enjoying that. I love VATS this time around. I love the slowdown effect. I really do enjoy the game, but I think the one thing that's lacking for me is the moment to moment, the quest lines and my motivation beyond just, hey, I wonder what this water treatment facility is like. Let's go clear it out. My motivation on a narrative level is it's never been about the overarching story. Chasing down your dad in Fallout 3 wasn't super engaging. Chasing down your son in 4 isn't great, but the little side stories were always the best. And so far, pound for pound, I don't feel like the side stories are doing it for me as much as they did in 3.
Right. And I heard you talking a little bit about how the mystery is kind of gone. 3 year off in your own world, because no one was talking about it in February of 2015.
That's the super subjective, if I was, since I'm not reviewing the game, I can kind of take those things into account, where it's 3 I came into after the fact. I didn't understand a lot of the hype, and I experienced it on my own terms. And now 4 is just there's just Fallout 4 oversaturation everywhere, and it makes you kind of feel it's such an odd feeling, but it just feels kind of exhausting every time I sit down and play the game. It's what more discoveries are there going to be that haven't been? I don't know. It's a very odd feeling that I don't usually feel, but Fallout 4 is one of the biggest releases in recent memory, so
that's the biggest of the year, hands down. Yeah,
just the fact that it's a big world. But I'm really enjoying it. I look forward to playing it, but it's not as all consuming as I thought it was going to be. The other day, I sat down and booted up my friends list. I'm is anyone playing Destiny? Maybe I could play some Destiny quick and then come back to Fallout 4. But I'll stick through it. I hope to check out most of what it has to offer.
Cool.
Yeah. Any other tips?
Keep playing.
Yeah, I mean, it's keep leveling. That's the big thing. That just keep wandering. That's the best way to level, is just clearing out supermarkets and stuff like that, and just getting more loot and stuff like that. The best thing you can do is just keep adding points into the different special categories.
And don't be afraid to go off the beaten path. Sometimes some of the most fun experiences I've had in both Fallout games is just I'm going to go walk over here because I don't have a lot on my map here, and just see what pops up. That's always, exploration is Bethesda does an amazing job of you don't go too long without feeling like you made like a major discovery.
Yep. And talk to everyone in cities to get quests.
Yes,
Get those side quests.
absolutely. I'm going to ask this one from Michael here. Hello, GI Podcast crew. Love the show. Thank you. So recently, the owner of the Detroit Lions, Martha Ford, fired both the GM and president of the team.
Yeah.
The interim GM, Sheldon White, held a press conference soon after which he said, "The biggest direction I got from Mrs. Ford is that she's not giving up the season." Giving up on the
erection
season.
or
That's what I thought.
Now, I'm not sure what he meant to say exactly, but I'm sure it wasn't that. It's probably hard, speaking in front of people if you're not used to it, and even if you do it a lot, as you find folks do. Word slip-ups happen. What was your most embarrassing case of misspoken words, Michael? Do you remember a time that you misspoke something so terribly? Or maybe it's a word
We
that you
can edit
mispronounced
stuff.
for years? Yeah, that's the thing.
Well, there's Reiner with the replay from Metal Gear Solid 3. We'll leave it at that. Just boot that baby up.
Watch the beginning of that.
No, that's intentional.
That's
though.
intentional. Okay, cool. I thought of one, like my first internship at a video production place was called Hoffman Communications here in the Twin Cities. And my boss, his name was Dan, and he's like an older guy. He was like a writer and director of Program Companion for years and years.
Did you say a rector?
Yeah, he was a director for Program Companion. And so I like worshipped him, like, oh my God, crazy legacy. I love Program Companion. Anyways, so I really looked up to this guy, and like I walked in the office like first day and was getting used to it. And then he's like, I was a nervous wreck, by the way, just like height of anxiety issues, just a disaster of a human being
Wonderful.
back then.
Yes, I love
and
it.
so he walked in, he's like, hey, what do you think of the office? And I was like, oh, it's good. It's really homely. And he's like, who you calling homely? I was like, what do you mean? Just blushing, losing my mind. Because I didn't know the difference between homey and homely. And so I was trying to say it's homey,
They're
except
different things.
it turns out it's different
sure.
things. Yeah.
Tack, do you have one?
I actually don't have a good
Yes,
story
you
here.
do.
Dan's never made a
Do?
mistake.
Okay, I
Yeah,
do.
we were running through, God, what was it? It was in Orlando.
In Orlando.
And we were running up and trying to kill the giant, like,
Dark Souls stuff?
giant archers.
Giant
And
archers.
you told me to go like run up and beat that guy off the ledge.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
It was
I didn't
amazing.
misspeak, though.
Yeah. You meant to say go beat him up?
Yeah, I meant go beat that guy off. I literally meant that, yeah.
Literally.
You couldn't do that in game, though. The mechanics just don't allow for
There's
it.
only so
but,
many emergent systems that can facilitate.
Not even Dark Souls.
From
can do that.
Software is working on it. But
Old
that was-
Hunters, it's a back of the box.
The old Hunters.
That was an amazing
Oh,
moment.
man.
One time I misspoke was early on when I started at GI. I was super embarrassed, but I met Mike Fahey and Tina Amini when they were like one of the earlier conventions, and I totally just had a complete brain fart and thought they were both joystick writers. They were Kotaku writers at the time.
happens all the time.
And that was insanely embarrassing. I was just totally red-faced, just like, oh my God, like I completely blew that. And so
I did that as well. I was at a bar in Bellevue, Washington, and N. Kroll was there. He's in the industry.
Yeah.
He works for Hit Detection now, consulting and whatnot. But like, I am a huge Newsweek fan, and he used to write for Newsweek and do the games coverage for Newsweek back in the day, which I just worship. Like, oh my God, there's games coverage in Newsweek. It's like a real magazine. And so I went up to him at the bar, and I was a little bit tipsy. But I was like, oh, Mr. Kroll, I just wanted to say thank you for your awesome work in Newsweeks. I can't thank you enough. And then for years now, I regret that I said Newsweeks. Like an idiot.
That's it? That's your big... That's your big...
I added an S on the
implied
thing.
like
Nobody cares,
multiple
Hanson.
magazines.
Ben, are you sure you want us to edit this part out?
It'd be nice.
Really embarrassing.
I know.
Oh my God.
So mine was the Metal Gear Solid replay that we did.
You got to
And-
watch it.
Yeah, and I won't spell out what I said, but I was trying to combine Kyle and Dingus,
We'll leave it to your imagination.
I gotta go watch
and
this.
it spiraled out of control. And
really
Hanson
great.
tried to bring it back in, and I had no idea what I said.
It was just a slip of the tongue, Reiner.
Indeed.
that's good.
So moving right along here, we got this is Riley from Tampa. Hi, GI. I really don't listen to podcasts much, but after absorbing all of your other digital content, I thought it would be good to check it out. I know Tim gets really into video game soundtracks, but what about the rest of you? What is one song that absolutely melts your soul or gets you fired up? Is there a game with a soundtrack that you abhor? This is Riley says their favorite soundtracks: Zelda, Nier, The Witcher. Thanks for the amazing content. Keep up the show. Thank you, Riley. Is there? What I like about this one is just like maybe it doesn't have to be like your favorite song or something, but just one that like you feel like you really like speaks to you, makes you feel a thing that.
Oh man,
This is an easy one, like now. And that would
Okay.
be the Undertale soundtrack. pretty
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
it's so good.
So easy to just no brainer.
Well, he just kind of winged it. I don't know if you know Tony
Yeah.
Fox. No big deal.
He totally cool guy that this compliments. He's really humble about it. But yeah, I'm with you, Dan. Like, it's weird. I know there's certain soundtracks that can feel like really effectively nostalgic without like, they're evoking things you maybe heard, but I know there's specific like musical styles and compositional styles. Another one that makes me think about it is like Anamanaguchi, like the Scott Pilgrim soundtrack. There's something kind of like melancholy-esque and like sad about it. And a lot of like Undertale songs get that sort of like a little bit of a sadness angle to it.
Because a lot of the stuff is sad in that game,
But then you have something like the music that plays during one of the potential boss fights
Tim,
near
God,
the
what
end.
What are you going to bring up here?
It's got a song called Megalovania.
Tim sends me a link to a different cover of Megalovania from Undertale like 3 times.
There's
a day.
one that's just dogs barking.
That's a good tune.
It's really good.
Literally, there's one of dogs barking it that he sent me.
Yeah.
But Undertale has like the entire spectrum of just like really heartfelt stuff to really like goofy to stuff that absolutely gets you fired.
It's got
up.
it all.
Yeah.
This is a weird. Chrono Cross is my favorite soundtrack of all time. I think it's absolutely amazing. But one, just maybe because I was listening to it just yesterday while at work, and I like this game. It's not my favorite. We've talked about it. I mean, it's clearly an impressive game. Anyways, I think that the Skyrim theme, the title theme, I mean, it's cliche, but like probably the most effective theme song for the last 5 years, 10 years. That song is amazing if you listen to it just for like hyping you up.
Right.
Yeah.
Holy Lord.
Sure.
Yeah.
I have 2. The Imperial March from Star Wars. Whenever I hear that, it just hits home, and especially in Battlefront when you seize a base and it as the Empire and it rings out, you're like, we are badasses, right? And then the video game song that it always does it for me is the Final Fantasy Victory theme.
Oh, really?
When that kicks in, and it's after a big battle, when that happens, you feel so good and so powerful in that moment. So yeah, those are my 2.
I'm absolutely with you. I think for me, like the ending theme, not the end credits theme to Sonic 2 is really good. And it's really weird because the composer is also did a actual live cover of it with lyrics and stuff like that, which is really cool. Otherwise, the Metal Gear Solid theme, like the original one,
Or Peace Walker theme is really, really strong.
Peace Walker theme's good. Yeah. So those are solid ones. So.
Hang on. Let's stop. Let's have a Dan Tack dissection here. What do you mean by that?
I don't know.
You little shithead.
I'm not going to tell you what I meant by that one.
By what?
Do you know the Peace
did
Walker
I really
theme?
like it, or did I think it was crap?
Did you play
I don't know.
Peace Walker?
Yeah, I played it.
Do you have thoughts on Peace Walker?
No, not right now. We got questions to get through.
Great.
We'll talk about it later.
Great. I learned a lot.
Did you?
Yep.
This one's from Sweden. Emil. I thought it said email from Sweden, and I'm just like, of course it's an email. I'm
That's
so
like the other
sorry.
question.
It's Emil.
That's excellent.
Oh, listener Emil.
Hi, GI guys. I was wondering what personal favorite that you have when it comes to games with great atmosphere that makes you immerse completely when you play it. 2 of my absolute favorites are Dead Space and the Metro games. Love the show, Emil. Atmosphere in video games.
So it's Bloodborne probably for me.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty
The
heavy.
gothic horror kind of.
Yeah.
Order 1886.
Come on.
No, like the obvious example for me is like Shadow of the Colossus. But
That's a good one.
to choose something on the complete opposite side of the spectrum that I think still counts as atmosphere in a different twist, I think Splatoon has like the most consistent, fun vibe.
Sure.
Atmosphere doesn't have to be like moody. It can be just a consistent tone and
Yeah.
vibe that game sets. And I think Splatoon knocks it out of the park.
Okay.
I'd have to say, like, of recent memory, and it's all kind of linked, but like the Silent Hill series has always been really, even the bad ones are really good about just making me feel like I'm in this oppressive, mysterious place that like it feels like hope has been like somehow tangibly siphoned out of this place, and I'm just left in this vacuum of a weird ass dangerous place. And PT is like maybe the most uncomfortable I've been in a video game in a long time, and that the ability to make you feel uncomfortable so quickly with so little, as far as like jump scares and stuff, is remarkable. Yeah, so PT's up there.
I would say Mass Effect in terms of just that their vision of the future. I think is super interesting, and I don't know. I think it kind of parallels where we're going with technology, and yeah, that. And also just the film grain that they put in the game.
Yeah.
Having it feel kind of like Blade Runner or something like that, just that, and the music that kind of accompanies it.
Yeah.
I like it.
I gotta disagree though, Reiner. Like the beginning of Mass Effect 2, I feel like there is no atmosphere, and Shepard's just kind of like left out there.
Left out in the cold. Yeah. It's a good joke.
Pretty good.
I also would say, like, more recently, like Fallout 3 and 4, specifically, like 3 the first time I played it, 4 is a kind of an iteration of it. But I feel like that they know exactly what they want their like 50s retro vision of the apocalypse futuristic thing to be, and I think that they just absolutely nail it. You know, when you walk into some place and it's just like, you know, the music's playing off of a radio or something, and it's just
The advertising.
the advertising's great. You know, the products, all the sugar bombs and Nuka-Colas and stuff. Like, they obviously nailed it, but everyone knows that by now. I was late to the party. Okay, this is from what? This is my transition. Is it
I liked
goofy?
it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
Ooh, next question. It's a Wario impression, everybody. It's good. That's what I decided to go with. This is from Justin from Lakeville, Minnesota. Longtime YouTube stalker, second-time question writer. I thought of you after the replay of Fusion Frenzy. My friends and I freaking love Fusion Frenzy.
No, not possible.
I do
question.
too.
Yeah.
Literally, I actually do.
Shut up!
I had a ton of fun with that game with my friends.
Cut Dan's mic.
Just cut the mic.
Come on!
We're going to quarantine this building until we can figure him out. No guy's cabin trip is complete without a few games. The game always elicits screams of enjoyment, gasps, disappointment, lots of taunting.
Disappointment. A lot of disappointment.
Zack attack in the Ack pack. Bruised
Lego the
egos,
Maniac?
Look, we all
hurt
know
feelings,
that.
and way more sweat than a non-Wii video game should elicit. Damn. They were really like Fusion Frenzy. Okay. So my question is, what game do each of you enjoy that is almost universally panned? That's Justin.
I think Hanson and I are in the same. I don't know if this was panned,
Uh-oh.
but Driver San Francisco.
Wasn't panned.
But I mean, that's a game nobody really talks about, but we rave about all the time.
Underrated. Wildly underrated. I was thinking about like, I don't know, like, I think of like the games I loved as a kid, and then I looked them up. Like, no offense to you, Reiner, but like on GameSpot. Like once I got a computer and whatnot, and be like, what? Atomic Bomberman got a 5.6. I love that game. There's no way. I thought the first one that jumped to my mind, this is stupid, but I thought Smuggler's Run on PS2.
The Rockstar game?
Yeah, I had a great time with that game. Then I went back and looked at reviews and like, oh, it actually did really well reviews-wise. But I really like Super Crosswords, the Crosswords game on there's a DS one and a 3DS one. And yeah, they aren't getting great reviews. It's a crosswords game, but I love them.
Was it just to the UI or the fact that people don't like crosswords, or like the question's not that interesting?
I think it's like, look, if you had to review a crosswords game, what would you give it? If it's a successful crossword sim.
I could pick up a newspaper for a quarter and do this every day.
Correct. Yeah.
I'm going to transition this into a guilty pleasure because these games don't really get reviewed at all. But those Where's Waldo-esque iPhone games where they show you a picture and you have to find like 5 items in it.
Those are so, yeah.
Like those crappy bar games?
Yeah,
I
crappy
play
bar games.
I play the hell out of those on my phone. I love them. Yeah,
Wow.
I love them.
What?
Yeah.
I've never heard you bring it
Yeah,
up.
I never talk about them because I know that like,
why would you?
nobody's going to play these and you're going to give me that look.
It's just like those turd games from Highlights Magazine back in the day.
If you're sitting down
Yes.
eating like a delicious double-deckeroni at Old Chicago or something, and they have one of those screens there, are you
I'm playing
immediately on it?
Yeah,
Okay,
if I see that
gotcha.
game on there, it's like, let's do this.
Okay.
Wow.
This email
Yeah.
brought to you by Old Chicago.
But they release a ton of them, so people are playing them. But yeah, in terms of like our gaming circles, I'm the only one.
I guess mine has to be like, it just, not by choice, it's Dead Space 3.
Oh, quit
is
bringing
the-
it up, Tim.
I mean,
Beep.
I proudly stand by my 9.75 for a game that people really didn't enjoy, and I will go down with the ship on that one.
Will you sync already? You've been going down with the ship for a long time on Dead Space 3.
People will come back around. Just wait. Come on. I also love Mario Sunshine.
I
do too.
I think outside of Fusion Frenzy, which I actually do like for real.
Crap.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna go back with this one. I think Deadly Towers for the NES.
Okay.
That has a special place for me, even though it was a terrible game. But,
What's going on in that game again?
it's just like it's the most generic action RPG you could ever think of. But
Okay.
like, back in the day, it was super cool. Like because I didn't have many games,
Huh.
so I thought it was awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Next one is from Aiden from California. Last email. Hey guys, love the show. Real entertaining. Anyway, I read that kind of sarcastically, but I didn't mean to. Anyway, I was a real wuss when I was a kid, so I never really got far in games. So I would spend all my time just endlessly replaying the beginnings of the games that I had. Paper Mario, Banjo-Tooie, Ocarina of Time, and other N64 games. I would start them and play to the point that I couldn't get past and stop and restart. Thanks to this, I have a great love for the beginnings of games. So my question to you guys is, are there any games beginnings that you could just start and enjoy without necessarily liking or completing the rest of it? And conversely, is there any whose beginning you feel is a chore to get through, but the rest is great? Let's just focus on that first question first, which is like,
I think we're all going to say the same thing.
you think so?
Yeah.
What, Mass
The
Effect
best
2?
beginning. No, Last of Us, right?
I was going to say
It's
Last
like
of Us.
the
Yeah.
best beginning to any game ever.
I guess my read on the question is a little bit like, I think that's a super good beginning, not for like the gameplay level of it, but like a game that you find yourself wanting to start a lot, but maybe you just don't get the hooks don't get into you so much. I think a common one that I hear is like Super Mario World, where it's just like I just need a shot of 2D Mario, and people play it, and like that same session, you're not going back like the next week and like, oh, finally made it through the woods or whatever. You just play a little bit of it and you're good. Maybe you've beaten it once or something, but you just keep starting it over and over again.
Yeah, like I don't know how often I'm gonna want to replay Last of Us. But I could see going back and watching that intro like once every 2 years. Like it's still so good. Like my roommate just started it, and I was in my bedroom and I could hear that intro start, and I was like, God, what is that sound? It sounds so familiar. I was like, oh, that's right, at the beginning of Last of Us. And I needed to go out and watch it for the 30th time. It's still so good.
Awesome. Yeah, it's another one is I've only beaten the game once, but Castlevania Symphony of the Night is like every time I see it on like a digital menu or like rifling through like my PlayStation games and stuff, I'm just like, oh my God, yes, I absolutely want to play the beginning of it. Because it's just, the ramp is like, there's a lot of variety in the beginning. It's like, okay, now I'm Richter, I'm fighting Dracula. Oh, now I'm like a super beefy Alucard one-shotting everything. Like, oh, now I got to build it back up a little bit. All right, I killed the pterodactyl dude and his Minotaur friend. I might make it a couple bosses in, and then I put it down and then start it over again in the next year.
I've started Portal 2 a million times. That's another intro that I think is an absolute masterpiece.
Yeah, that's up there.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a great one. Portal 1 as well.
Yeah.
Both those games have such strong beginnings.
Right. Mario 64 is another one where it's like I've beaten Bomb Battlefield and like Jolly Roger Bay like a million times.
Yeah, same here.
But I've only beaten the game end to end like once or twice. I think so.
And then Dan Tack says Bloodborne or some crap.
I was gonna say like Dark Souls seems to be one that people do. Not in my case, but like in my case, I've started it before I finished it. I started it like 3 times, maybe 4.
I wonder if Skyrim would be one for people, just starting new characters a lot and
just testing them out.
Yeah, you talk to a million people that played hours and hours of Skyrim, but never saw credits.
I would always stop after that cart ride because I liked it so much. It's like talk about a roller coaster.
Hey,
it's really good.
It goes on for a while.
Really good.
Let's see another character. What does a cat look like in this cart?
Yeah.
What do we think? That was all the emails. Thank you.
Enzo.
All really great ones.
I like Enzo's Mass Effect one.
Yeah, he remembered his name. Yeah, I am with you on that. The good versus bad endings and like how people get so caught up in like making sure they get the perfect ending and like that's the thing that's I know we come back around the horn on it, but like people will say like, oh man, if you really like this character, here's what you should avoid. And then they tell someone, then someone changes how they play based on it, and then it changes. It's like a spoiler, and just embrace the story that's coming to you. As long as you're enjoying the game, I guess. But yeah, that's for Enzo. Thank you for that email. It's email of the week. We'll send you a little thank you. But if you have questions or want to send us an email, it's podcast@GameInformer.com. Please send us an email.
You guys want to plug anything on the site?
Please go ahead.
I was going to throw it out there, but we're still rolling out Quantum Break stuff. And on Monday, it was on Monday this week, I released a video about just going through the history of that project because it's been around for quite a while. So if you've been curious about how the live action stuff started, its roots within Alan Wake 2, and how the just like changing face of Microsoft has affected that game, stuff like that, I recommend people check out that video feature. It's called Microsoft's Long Game, but it's available on YouTube and our site.
Awesome. I'd say besides that, Joseph Knoop, an intern at Game Informer, gave sort of like a look at like the representation of like the 90s in video games and sort of just like, I feel like we've gotten a lot of like 80s nostalgia and games that evoke that era, but there's some 90s that's floating around out there too. And, I think that's becoming more and more nostalgic. You got the Splat and Nickelodeon channel and stuff like that. Like the 90s are going to come back around. And video games are represented with that too. So that was a cool look, and I think it kind of was getting overlooked because there was a lot of Fallout stories last week. So,
yeah, do you guys have anything you want to give a shout out to?
Just replay, watch it. Friday nights now.
Yeah,
Fusion Frenzy. Friday nights, not on. We just did Fusion Frenzy, but
how did I miss that?
Not Saturday morning anymore. So you get a few, another 12 hours to view it over the weekend.
Yeah, cool. So stick around for our chat with Sean Vanaman.
Sean Vanaman, welcome to the Game Informer Show, man.
Thanks for having me. How's it going?
Pretty good. We appreciate your time, man.
Yeah.
So, what have you been up to? Tell us, walk us through like the last week in the development of Firewatch.
Oh man, big week. So the game's like done, like playable all the way through, but it's not good all the way through. So this week we recorded the absolute last line of dialogue we'll need for the game. I'm sure there are other ones we'll need, but we just won't get them. That's so we'll just have to like. You can write yourself out of design problems, but now we have to design ourselves out of design problems, which is totally fine. But yeah, it's mostly we're just polishing and playing the game. You know, like I make a build in the morning and I make one in the afternoon and I just play it all the way through and I take notes. And it takes me a long time to go very not far. So like I'll be like, well, I haven't left the like 10 square foot area I started in and I have 20 notes. That sort of thing.
Is it all narrative based or is it like collision detection or like what level?
It's like everything. Like
okay.
Literally everything. I'm like, oh, he said that line a little fast. I'm like, oh, I like got hung up on this bush that it was here. It's not really happening anymore so much. But you know, like everything, it's like top to bottom. Just like play it with just an eye for quality. Like just every single thing contributing to the game. Like, oh, the UI was a little funky here. Or like, oh, did you mean that to fade in because it popped in? Stuff like that.
Are you bringing in
but
outsiders?
It's nice to look at it at that level of detail now. It used to just be like, bad game was the note. Where it's like, no, like it doesn't do it. Doesn't play. Does you can't go anywhere. But now it's like literally like, oh, he said that fast. Don't like slow that down.
How many people do you have on QA besides yourself?
So we have like a general office like lord named Gabe, and he's just sort of been on full-time QA. And then we're producing the game with a company called Panic Incorporated. They make Mac utility software, and they're based in Portland, Oregon. And there's a couple of guys there we were like, hey, we need more QA help. And so there's a couple guys there we knew who have tested their various apps and utilities. We're like, I will do this. I'll do game QA. And they've been really great. So they're like the two most gamer dudes at that studio in terms of like I know one of them took a day off this week to play Fallout 4. So he's like one of those guys.
Perfect. Perfect QA tester.
That's right.
So we have like 3 plus the team, which is like small, but like the game's not like it's not Fallout 4 in terms of scale.
But he's used to looking for bugs in games if he's playing a lot of Fallout 4,
That's
or at least
perfect.
he knows them when he sees them at this point.
Take that, Bethesda.
I'm really liking Fallout 4.
You're not going to get 5 minutes. Who else? No, I like Fallout 4 a lot too. I'm also playing on console, so like I just feel like my experience is a little more like sanded down on the edges, sort of thing. Yeah, but like a lot of my I'll be like IMing with people during the day, and it's like I can't believe this bug, and I can't do this with my settings on the X-axis, and I'm like just a console peasant, just playing. I'm really enjoying the game. It's too much though. It's like way too much. Like the moment like they just give you so much at the beginning that when I like started disassembling my first house, I was like, why would I go anywhere else? Like there's like this is it. Like I don't like sorry kid, like I'm not finding you. Like it's just too much game. It's like far too much. But sure I'll play more of it when the game's done.
Why are you playing on console?
Laziness.
Oh, I see.
I literally just like was like, I kind of just want to sit on the couch, and then I was like, I could hook up the Steam Link, but like, I gotta plug it in. It's like it's literally just like came home and was like, what is my like most like frictionless path to playing Fallout 4? It's like
It's
the couch is here.
Yeah.
I can lay there.
So with outside testers to Firewatch, has any feedback stood out to you so far? Anything that's been shocking?
That's a good question. Nothing shocking because I just sort of expect the worst all the time. No, it's the first like it's got systems in it, so you get stuff like turtle crawls through wall, and you're like, what? So that stuff is always exciting. I like come from an adventure game background where we just didn't do a lot of things like that. There wasn't like this thing is alive and existing on its own plane, and then this is live over here, and if those two things collide, a weird thing might happen.
Right.
But there's stuff like that in Firewatch, not a ton, but like that. There is like a systems foundation that the game is built on top of, even though it's really content heavy.
Yeah.
So that stuff is always surprising when those bugs come across. Where it's like, oh, I guess we need to like not let that happen. But no, I mean, there's stuff like it's people complete it in a consistent amount of time, which is really weird. Like, I guess that's good. It's like it's a good thing. But we like watch two people with two very different play styles play it at the same time. This is not the QA guys. This is actually their bosses, and they had like their screens were faced like away from each other, like they were just like facing each other. And I would like watch one computer and like watch the other one, and they would be like in completely different areas of the world, doing completely different things. And then when they would hit like a major story moment, it was just sort of like they were like 3 seconds off. And I was like, that's good.
Weird.
So, because we've never made a game like this before. So
Why do you think that is? Is there like a ticking clock or something that's kind of funneling people towards the same moments?
no, I think a lot of it is that like Jane, who's our environment lead, and Jake, who's a co-founder of the company and just sort of designer guy, I think they're just way better at level design than they thought they were. I think that's really it. I think like it's so much of the game. This is a weird thing to say, and we haven't said this internally, so this isn't like off my like company line or anything. But I was thinking about this last night. I was riding on my bike home, and so much of the game is sort of, I realize now, built on sort of this like Disneyland ethos of be lost but not lost. Like be lost but like it's okay because we probably put something over here for you, or you're gonna find your own fun in this area because there's stuff to like pick up and throw around and explore. And I think that helps with a predictable sort of time to play the game.
And then also just with the Disneyland theme, I mean, you also have the Watchtower, right, as your Cinderella's castle to constantly. I mean, to take it.
Yeah,
that's
there's
kind of...
actually a Watchtower now in California Adventure too. But there's not a ton of it's a really hard problem, right? Because the world's big. Like the world is like, that's the most surprising thing now. Like having made it, we're like, this is just so much bigger than we thought it was going to be. Like, we didn't want to do that thing where, in almost like a cartoon fashion, as you got closer to like further away from the edges of the world, like we always made sure it was on the skyline, and like it's possible to do that, obviously. Like there are games that do that really elegantly, like Journey or whatever. But like if we did it, it would just feel bull. Can I swear on this podcast?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so sorry. You can whatever. I'll do less.
You're fine.
But it would feel crappy, I think. So, but it does this by that same token, like the landmarks of the world and the tower itself are used to draw you the right place. Like there's a moment. There are many, not as many as I thought there were going to be, but there's definitely moments in the beginning where we know you're getting like you have no idea where you are and you're getting used to the map. Where it's like, well, we know we want you to head back to your tower, so we'll just create like a fake one that's like 8x the regular size, and you'll see it above you, like where you're hiking through a canyon, and it just feels like it's the right size and place where it is, but it's actually like 6 times bigger and in the wrong place. We do that every once in a while, just as sort of like, but we also have tried to design the world where you actually just see it where it's supposed to be.
Does it help at all with the art style of the game where you can kind of push things? Doesn't have to be hyper realistic.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I think you can get away with so much. Also, like because of the art style of the game, not just being a little more stylized, but also the way that like Ollie laid out the sort of like color design of the game. We can use things like depth of field and what we call like stylistic fog. Just make the world feel like a painting, but use it for design sense, where it's just like, it doesn't look like there's anything interesting over there because it just looks like color almost. But
sure,
yeah. So yeah, definitely we have like all those tools, which is good. If making it hyper realistic, like if it was like Crisis, like that would be like really hard. That would be very very hard. We would just lose a lot of the tools we have at our disposal to keep going. Right?
Yeah. Well, hey, on that Disneyland theme, would you mind taking a walk through your history, Sean? Going back to the roots.
Oh man,
because
I started at Disney. Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to just describe your job back then?
Yeah, I guess. Let me think. So I was in college, and I started as an intern there, which was cool. It was cool because at the time, like I didn't really have video game ambitions. I was just sort of like, I don't know. I was like curious about lots of stuff. Knew a lot about games as a consumer, but wasn't. I don't know. I didn't have a plan or like a path or anything. It wasn't like I'm going to go here and do this and do 2 years here and do 4 years there. I was just sort of like keep doing the most interesting thing I get the chance to do.
Right.
And that was the one that was like, oh wow, of course I'll do that. And as I was there, I sort of moved into like a creative design group that, like, when I graduated, where there was like few producers and associate producers, and then I don't know if it's like this now. I suspect that it's not, but at that time, the way sort of like things would happen at Disney is, and I think it's good that it's not this way anymore. Maybe it is, but they would say, look, we want a game that hits this market. So it's like, we want a game that's like boys racing game from age 8 to 14 or whatever. And it's like new IP, or we want you to use this existing IP. And you would sort of like sit down, work with other designers and prototype teams and sort of figure out like, okay, this is a good idea for that. And then find a developer to work with and like package that all up and like try to get that game made. Which is a weird job. And
it sounds like a dream job.
It does sound like a dream job, but it's also like, you know, Disney was so big and like there were so many moving parts and like so many like your boss's boss that it's kind of like going into Willy Wonka's chocolate factory and then going into that garden where all the candy is and then being like, you can smell it. You know, and it's like, well, almost worse. Like almost worse than not coming in here. So there's definitely that, you know. Like by the time I had done that and I'd worked on a couple things that got made, a lot of stuff that didn't get made. I had amazing opportunities to like travel and like I worked China for like 9 months and like did really cool stuff. But I was like, I just want to work on a thing that I know will ship, and I just want to work in dev and like make the game, as opposed to like be sort of like this creative on one side and then like there's like business, political on the other. And I just want to focus in my career right now. So I went to Telltale, or Telltale had me, which was nice. And I worked there starting on like the Wallace and Gromit game.
Awesome.
And then I worked on a game called Puzzle Agent, or no, I think it might've been Monkey Island after that. And then I worked on Poker Night at the Inventory. And actually before that, I spent like a year and a half there prototyping stuff, working on a license two licenses that like never got even close to being announced, that were just like really weird, like very cool, but like weird things. Like there's an alternate reality where like instead of Tales of the Borderlands, there's like another Telltale game that's based on a game that was really going to be weird. So like it was a kind of a cool time to like go back into like idea mode. And then a lot of those ideas ended up becoming like the foundation of what was The Walking Dead season 1, which Jake and I were the creative leads on. And then after Walking Dead, I kind of like was like in charge of the story team, and I went like, man, like I don't know, like it was just like I just, you know, it was like, oh, I saw myself like being like 5 years, 6 years, like telling people what to do still, like as opposed to just doing it. And I think Telltale would have definitely let me stay in dev, but the opportunity to start our own studio came along, and it was like, well, if we don't do this now, we'll like never get the chance to do it. So we left to do that, to start Campo Santo, even before we really knew what the game would be or who we would make it with. We just sort of said, all right, we think we have enough ideas and enough rods in the fire to like probably make something happen. So like, let's go. And Jake and I did that, and then rounded up who the people we have now. So it's kind of nice in that like I started it in the sort of this dual role of having to think about how to actually get the thing made with like inside of the apparatus, like inside of like the business of it, along with the creative. So it's like, yeah, I think this Jonas Brothers Nintendo DS game is actually creatively really sound, like, and actually has like good design sense, believe it or not, you know. But like, how do I make those choices that I know in my gut to be strong, like appealing to like the senior vice president of finance. Like what can I show him to make him go, oh yeah, we should totally spend $1 million on that game.
Isn't it just a matter of showing him sales figures for games that are like that game?
Yeah, but you can that's like it's still like no manipulation because like it's just what figures do you show him from what games,
right.
And like it's like you could walk in and be like, so I'm making this Jonas Brothers DS game, and like, and look at how well Final Fantasy has done this year. It's like, that's just like bullshit. You have to be like, here's a game. You go do the research and be like, here's a game that's like in this market. It's the same budget. It's like, but doing these things, and this is how they're marketing it. So if we market it this way, and it's just like it's fucking exhausting.
Yeah.
Sorry, I swear again. But
you're fine.
But it ends up being a really good skill set now. Like I still have had that experience, so I can go and like I can write dialogue on the game. I can do design work on the game. We can have design meetings. I can do just like mindless gameplays like voice scripting, which is just like making the lines connect to each other. But then I can go, okay, I need to actually like work on the company side of the game and like, talk to Sony about how we're gonna be at E3 and like what's that gonna be like and what do we want out of that and like what do we want in terms of marketing and like and then go back and do the creative stuff. So
and it doesn't feel like your old Disney job again? You feel more satisfied by it this time around?
It's all the joy of it. Like, it's all the fun of being able to do all the stuff and way fewer people telling me to stop, which is nice. So, the people who are telling me to stop is usually people who work at Campo Santo. Or they're just like, please, no. Can we just, and I'm like, okay, all right. Yeah.
Well, hey, going back to the Disney days a little bit, like one of the bigger projects I think that you were on the ground floor of is the Epic Mickey initiative.
Yeah.
How did that start out? I'm so curious, like what mindset they were in at the time where they wanted to go back to the roots like that.
It's a really interesting story. I don't know if interesting is the right word, but like it was making a Mickey game that was it makes sense, right? Like if you're in charge of interactive at Disney and you see like Mario and Link, you're like, what's the Mario is just like an Italian man Mickey. Like it's like without Mickey, like Mario never existed.
Right.
So you're seeing and you see this how like evergreen those like franchises are for Nintendo and have been for 25 years. Like, why is that not the case? It's like, well, there's a lot of reasons. But
you still have like Castle of Illusion and stuff. Like they have some benchmark for it. It can be successful.
Like, it's not like there was like like that was like a poisoned well or anything.
Mm-hmm.
It just hadn't happened. So it was just something they'd just been trying to do forever. Like I came in as an intern and along with some other people, and they had just gotten back like a really big pitch from an agency, I think. I don't even think it was a developer. It was just sort of like, we're going to rebrand Mickey for the video game age. And like, you can use these ideas as like the creative foundation to like figure out what your game is. And in like our second week there, like, my boss had been the guy who was sort of like, I think he was the director of creative development. So like, figure out what his job is by his title. And he was like, hey guys, you should look at this stuff. And like 3 or 4 of us, or I mean, how big the group was, like just a few of us were looking at it. And we're like, what is this? Like, it was like Mickey with like shades and rollerblades, like, but
Nice.
like, it was like
Pretty cool.
Yeah. It was like the bad version of the new Missy Elliott video. Like, it was just like, that doesn't feel right. Like,
It's basically Chester Cheetah on Genesis, I think. Yeah, is the reference.
Yeah. It was just like not good. So by that, like, I think what had happened is my boss was like, I want to hire creative interns. Like, I want to hire a writer, I want to hire artists, and I want to hire like whatever, graphic designers. And like, I just want to have like 5 interns. And Disney said like, yeah, whatever, fine. Interns are free. So I got hired along with a couple other people. And he didn't really have a plan, though. There was like no program for the interns. There was no sort of like rubric or benchmark for success. It was literally just like, be my minions and draw stuff and come up with ideas when I'm in meetings that I hate. So we started working on it. Like just started like thinking about like what are the basics? Like Mickey's got to be back in the shorts. You got to put him in the shorts. Like he can't be wearing any like crap. And just is there any? And then it was just research. Like we went over, like man, it was a cool time because so Imagineering was across the street, and it was like the original like WED building, like the Walt built in like the 50s, or whatever. And it's still there, and it's expanded obviously, but they have the Imagineering libraries in the original building, and they would just let us come over. So we would just like hang out in there, like literally every day for like weeks. Like nobody said anything. It was just like, oh, there's those kids in the library again. So we were just digging through stuff and like looking for good ideas. And the thing that like made the like the whole idea stick and like get pitched and get all the way through the company was just the idea of like Mickey and Oswald in a video game together. And everything else was like good, but like that the thing that I think was like as soon as we had that idea, like everything else just sort of kind of happened. And then it was like it went into like 4 years of development hell of just like pitching. We built a sick prototype like with a small team like way before it went into production. It was really neat.
2D still or 3D?
3D.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was like people who had worked on games like Ratchet and Clank and stuff, so it was like we built this prototype. It was awesome. But like that's just what happens. You build prototypes and you like sign a deal just to do that much. You don't get to like sign the development deal. You sign like, oh, we'll bring you on for like 6 months to do this, and then hopefully you'll be the team that does it. But like maybe it doesn't get greenlit right now. And like it was during the Eisner like Iger like CEO change at Disney. So like everything was just sort of like this is going well today, but could be gone tomorrow. But Bob Iger really liked the idea. So
you talk about like the difficulty of pitching like the design sense of this Jonas Brothers games. I'm trying to understand how they can see like the idea of Oswald being in a game as super attractive again. Like, hey, let's take this super deep cut. Like, what business sense does that make to make him the cornerstone of this new game?
It just felt cool. I think God, it's funny. There's sort of like this like there's this like not like very like ethereal Disney energy / pride ego thing that you can tap into when you work, and it's seducing like when you work there. So like the idea of like there's the original Mickey, and he like there's no other character in the history of media that's like been on the shelf for 80 years, and we're gonna go to Universal and we're gonna get him back and bring him back to the company. Like they're just like, of course we are. It's like that's why wouldn't we do that? So like that's like I think that was it. I think like when we were originally working on it, the sort of idea of like there was like some ink stuff, but like the idea of like so much of the world of the game that shipped on Wii was like a little sort of like Burton-esque in how like things could be like corrupted and like kind of stitched together in like a really sort of like Dr. Moreau way. And that stuff was all like I think evolved, but it was mostly just Mickey and Oswald.
Right.
That was the original crux. And then design wise, I thought like it just I think I left Disney and then Junction Point and Warren Spector's team. It was like a 2-week crossover. It was like they were coming on to do the game, and like I was leaving.
You also felt pretty good about that, like leaving it in Warren Spector's hands. Like that's a good place to leave.
I mean, it was for me. It was just like, it's finally getting made. Like it was 4 years. Like it was the first thing I did when I was there, and it was the last thing that I saw leave. But like in between that time, I worked on a bunch of like stuff like the Jonas Brothers. Right. Things like that.
Can you talk about the anecdote of trading a old cartoon rabbit for a human adult male?
Yeah, it's funny. So I would like really up on that because like that was like the big thing. That was like my boss, me, my boss, and a couple other people at that stage. Like all the original intern team had moved on. Like I was just still working there, and we were sort of like me and my boss were like the only two kind of people who had been in the room when Bob Iger had said like, we'll get him back. Like, we'll get him from Universal. Don't worry about that. And we're just like, oh, shit. Like, awesome. And I remember they were all at DICE, I think. Or they were in Vegas, maybe. But I remember I wasn't there. And I got a text. I was like on my computer in my crappy apartment in LA. And it was like a Friday night because obviously I was home on a Friday night. And I saw it on ESPN. Where it was like Al Michaels to be traded to blah blah, like he was gonna go do NBC football Sunday night, like Saturday, like football night in America, Saturday night football on NBC, and for NBC Universal at that time before they were bought by Comcast even, and they had Oswald, and it just like was like a sweetener. But from what I've so I've since gone and like heard Al Michaels' account of this. Oh, but that night I like texted my boss and I was like, "Oh my god, they got him!" It was before we had like, I had like I can't remember what my phone was, but it was basically like a razor, so I couldn't like get the link from the article and get it into my phone and get it to him. So I was like, "I'll email it to you." He's like, "My BlackBerry's dead." It was like a different time, I've since heard an Al Michaels account of that where he's just like, that is nonsense. That is not what happened. Like, he's like really indignant about the idea that he could be traded for a cartoon for some reason. Like, it's like really bothersome to him. So he's just like, what was happening is like, my agent couldn't agree with whatever. So it was like they had this big they were having a huge contract dispute, and it was like somebody's infinite wisdom to say to like NBC Universal didn't want Oswald. They're like, this is a worthless thing to us. We're not like trying, like, we don't see any value in this character for us. So like, you can have him. But like, if we do it as a part of this deal, that will be the story, as opposed to just like the strife of this negotiation with Al Michaels and how much he hates Disney now and how pissed off he is to be like yanked at. Like, so it's like, we'll just make it about that. And then that's what people will report, as opposed to just Al Michaels being mad at everybody.
Interesting.
That's his take.
Okay.
I like to think that it was just a 1-for-1 schoolyard swap.
Yeah, maybe I just watched Bridge of Spies, where I just imagine it's like this prisoner exchange with Al Michaels walking by a cartoon rabbit
he's
on
got
the
a bag
bridge.
on his head.
I imagine being picked for dodgeball and just like fictional rabbits picked for him, and he's just got a history
he's just Oswald is like
So talking about the Telltale days, first of all, I want to kiss your ass for Puzzle Agent. Maybe it's just because we're from Minnesota, but I absolutely love that game. Just like having a game, this puzzle adventure game where you have Mickey's Diner from St. Paul, Minnesota modeled in there. Incredibly cool.
Yeah, that was probably Graham Annabel's call. Like, he was like he's just like, he works at Leica now. He directed the movie The Box Trolls, and he's
wow, I didn't know that.
There.
Wow.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's very talented. Like, he's my only friend who's been nominated for an Oscar. I was like, he's really good. But yeah, he kind of like the style of that game, and like the creation of Nelson Tethers was like his idea. And it was, again, kind of one of those things where like I was working on Monkey Island, and it was bouncing around. I can't remember what I was working on, but it was bouncing around, and I was like, oh, I want to work on that. I want to work on that. I want to work on that. And finally, like when my work was done, it still like hadn't been cracked yet, where it's like, we have this idea for this puzzle FBI guy, but like we don't know what the story is. And it was just sort of like, oh, that's perfect. Great. So I was able to work on that with Mark Darren, Jake Rodkin, a guy named Matt Hanson. And it was cool because it was a small team too.
Yeah. And then you have just kind of fusing it with a Fargo aesthetic came up somehow. Like, how does that get roped into it?
I don't know. Like, I think it was mostly Graham being like, I want it to be like Fargo and Twin Peaks, but also like my weird stuff. So there's going to be gnomes and that's in the FBI.
Yeah.
I have not played this game, but I am becoming more enticed.
It's directly up your alley, you idiot. You should play this game.
Sounds pretty good.
I think it's still, hopefully it's still available on iOS. I know the iOS 9 thing might have been a trouble, but it's on Steam too.
Yeah, just totally get it on Steam.
It's but like $5 maybe.
So around that same time, you met up with Jake Rodkin. How would you describe your relationship with Jake Rodkin now? Are you guys creative partners? How has that relationship kind of evolved over the years?
Yeah, we're like creative partners. Like the first I met Jake, sort of like from afar, like my first month there, he was walking around the office and was wearing an Idle Thumbs t-shirt, which is a podcast that he at the time was doing with a couple of buddies, Chris Remo and Nick Brecken. And it was a like well-designed shirt, so I like Googled what Idle Thumbs was, and then like I was like, oh, and so I like figured that out before I met him. And then we were in a Monkey Island meeting, and I like had pitched a thing for episode 3, and he was just like, never had met them before. He was just like, that is the worst idea. Like, are you serious? Like what? Like he got like pissed, and I was like, sweet dude, nice to meet you.
Do you see it as like an affront to like the Monkey Island license or franchise or something?
Oh yeah. It was like I was just like taking a dump on Ron Gilbert. Yeah. It was like, and I thought it was a good idea. But like I respected his, like, I think 9 times out of 10 people would like, somebody would do that in a meeting or whatever, and you'd just be like, that guy's a dick. Like he made me look bad. But I had like, I remember liking it. I remember being like, oh, this guy actually is the first person in this entire studio who's like checked me. You know what I mean? Who like was like, no, that's not right. And whereas I think I had been in so many like design meetings or whatever pitches there where I know I had pitched a bad idea and people were kind of like, yeah, okay. You know, and inside they're just being polite. I'm like, don't be polite. Like if it's bad, like I gotta know. But yeah, with him, there's like no filter. So,
nice.
And then after that, it was just like we just worked on every major game we worked on together. Jake would like always get roped on to do UI for games, but in terms of like being at the beginning of story and content and being, okay, yeah, we just always kind of palled up on stuff.
And you guys kind of had like a breakout team, right? Like that led up to Walking Dead. We're originally working on some other project. Is that right?
Yeah. We we were working on another project. We worked on that for like 6 months together, prototyping stuff in like a back room. That ended up being a lot of the time dialogue stuff on The Walking Dead, just sort of like clock is always ticking.
Okay.
And then we ended up working on that project fell apart, and it was like, oh, we need something to do. And Dan, who was the CEO of Telltale at the time, was just like, we want to do another poker game. So I was like, I remember being in his office and being like, because the project that we had been on was really cool. And I remember like, poker? Oh, like seriously? And I was like, oh, you know, but like Jake and I would go like for these walks around, like Telltale used to be kind of like on the right on the water in San Rafael. And we would just like walk on the seawall and just like, I remember we went like, I was like, let's just get out of here and like talk about this stupid poker game, because I guess that's what we have to make now. And by the time we got like to the halfway point, we were like stoked about the idea of like creating this, like of having dynamic dialogue, like a ton of it, and like building a place that like video game characters came to like play cards. And we're like, all right, sweet. So we got excited like in 10 minutes, and then we came back and we're like, okay, we have to make it.
So are you spitballing like ideas for licensed characters you can shove in there? Is that part of what makes you excited?
We knew we weren't going to get a say on that. We knew it was literally just going to be like Dan and the marketing guys being like, who's the best characters we can get for the best price? You know, like, so we knew that like not to get to, they're like, you can have a TF2 character. It's like, okay, yeah, we want the heavy, that sort of thing. But yeah. And it's like, you know, if you're going to have Sam and Max, it's like, you need to pick somebody from Sam and Max. It's like, oh, it's obviously Max. But it was mostly just sort of like, we do this a lot. This is sort of like, I guess it's just like creative problem solving Jake and I do, where it's like, okay, well, if we have to make this, what is the best version of it that we can get excited about? So it's like, sort of like hypothetical question where it's like, if you're on a desert island and you had to blah, blah, blah with blah, 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 you know, or like, so we end up doing that a lot, you know, we do that for like other studios. Like we'll be like at lunch now and being like, if you were so-and-so and you had just made this game, what would you do next? You know, or it's
right.
like, you know, we like think about it from like a creative like strategy perspective, and we do that a lot. So I mean, and, you know, we do that a lot on Firewatch, where it's like, well, we can't do any of the things we wanted to do because they were too ambitious. So it's like, what can we get? And then, you go really low because you're like, why are we in this bad situation? Why can't we just do what we want? And then when you have the idea that like brings you out of it, you go really high because you're like, oh, that's even better than had we not had the constraint, you know. And I think that's a lot of like, we felt the same where we were on programming.
Yeah. Do you have an example of that with Firewatch where you kind of made the most of not having an infinite budget?
Oh, that's like the whole game.
I guess another way to put it.
I just have to say the end, maybe. Like, I don't want to say what it is, but like, I think the last day of the game's broken up into chapter days. Like,
Okay.
It was like definitely like, what are we gonna do with what we have? And then I look at it and I'm like, that's even better than if we had full budget. Like, because we always talk like that. It's like, okay, if you could spare no expense and this game was coming out in 2018, what would we do? You know. So then we just sort of like bring it back if you can, and if you can't get it all the way back to like doable, then you just jettison the whole thing and go, well, let's not do a crappy version of the good thing. Let's do a good version of a smaller thing.
Right. Crazy. So when you look back on the Walking Dead experience, what are your thoughts these days? What emotions come to mind with Walking Dead season 1?
It's funny. Like I get kind of nostalgic for the characters a little bit. That's where I'm at now. It was like a period of like, oh, I can't just no more. Like I've been with these people for too long. It was like a road trip that wouldn't end. Not the people working on the game, the characters.
Right.
And then like we were really lucky that like the way season 1 ended and the story that like it was like there can be a million more Walking Dead seasons after this, but like we didn't leave it on a cliffhanger. Like it was like emotionally wrapped up. It was like I kind of do like wish I was working on the Clementine story stuff because I think like I have a like I don't know. I just kind of had some ideas there, but I'm to the point now where I actually miss the characters. Where it's like, oh, if I had a chance to like write Lee and Clementine again, or like I would probably do that. I don't know. Yeah, you know, it's like feels like thinking about people I went to high school with, like friends I went to high school with.
Yeah.
Like you miss them, but like you know, life goes on.
It's interesting on the Idle Thumbs podcast, maybe months ago, maybe like 6 months ago or so, you're talking about how you're kind of dissecting the story of Walking Dead still, even though you wrote it and you kind of had a revelation for like your perspective on Lee as a character. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Oh gosh,
And go for spoilers. At this point, I feel like people know what they're getting for, so don't talk around anything.
I want to. Hopefully, I don't contradict what I said on there.
Okay.
Right now. God, I have not thought about this in a minute. Lee is the protagonist from The Walking Dead season 1. Let me just start with the basics. To myself. Yeah, I think we set out to like this. It was like pretty basic. Like, okay, this is gonna be like a redemption story, where it's like Lee's gonna like have committed a crime, but in the court of public opinion, and like it's not like he was in the right. Maybe like it can be construed that like this guy he killed on accident, and he was like maybe defending himself. The guy was sleeping with his wife. It was like just a messy situation. But like obviously in the South, like race would play a role in this. So like in like how much of race plays a role in season 1 of Walking Dead, and that like it's never explicit, but like it's definitely real. It's all like the politics of race like occur in every interaction. And I really liked being able to work on that stuff. That was stuff that like I'm really happy with the way it turned out. There was like we could just work on the story and keep it in there and keep like the meaning in there. Like when like this like old dude's daughter ends up being nice to Lee, like Larry, like Lily's his daughter, and she ends up like she's in your group at the beginning in the game. Both of them are. He gets mad in a way that felt like this isn't about Lee as a person. This is about his race,
Right.
Which I liked all that stuff. But I think I kind of realized that like we weren't telling a redemption story, and then I wasn't able to really codify that feeling until after the game came out. And I was like, we're telling a redemption story for a man who actually doesn't need to be redeemed but believes he does. And I liked how that turned out. I think that ended up being good. So like taking care of Clementine and giving his life for Clementine at the end of the game, Lee can be at peace believing that like I am good and capable of love and being loved, and I maybe wasn't all those things I thought I was, which is really sad, which ultimately ended up bumming me out really hard because like we wrote 5 episodes of a character who just believed he wasn't worthy of like being a good character. He was like just showing this redemption that he didn't ultimately ever even need. And I think I had to like get away from the game to like realize that that's what we had done. I really liked. I mean, in terms of characters I've ever worked on, it's probably one of my favorites, Lee. Because I still think about it. I still kind of think like, well, you know, like what was that choice, and like what did that mean? Like, you know, I don't know. It was like ended up being like you kind of do this thing, right, where like you do it all and you write it all and you cast it all, and then they're just totally different. They're like kids. It's like, oh, I want my kid to like be like the starting pitcher for the Dodgers. It's just like, well, he's gonna become what he becomes. Like Kenny was definitely that way. Kenny was not as tortured ever. He was not supposed to be that. But then it just Gavin Hammond, this like, and the writing and the stuff that happens to him just made it that way. Like, well, I guess that's who he is. Yeah.
So you still think about the game a lot. Do you ever go back and play it?
No.
It's pristine in your mind?
Yeah, like, no. It's like I still think about my dead dog, but I don't dig up my dog and like, get my bones. And go,
You should
like,
really
"Oh."
try it.
You know?
Jesus
Like,
Christ.
no. Yeah. But that was,
Do you? So,
I mean, yeah. That's just not you do what you do with games at all. I mean, some people do.
yeah.
Like, I think Steve goes back and plays Minerva's Den like every year or something. But like Steve Gaynor. He said working on Make Gone Home. He's working on Tacoma.
Yeah. We've actually had him on the podcast before.
I can't do that.
It's tough.
Yeah.
So you talk about making the best of a situation, and I think of like the spot you and Jake were in, like you get the Walking Dead license, and I think it would have been pretty easy, not easy certainly, but like, okay, there's a template set, like Back to the Future. It was a totally fine Telltale adventure game. Like, let's just make the Walking Dead license version of that. But like, what compelled you guys to kind of reinvent it and really give this whole level of enthusiasm that I don't think we had seen from Telltale at that point?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, like we weren't trying to like set the world on fire. Like we did not think the game was gonna like land but like it's not our job to feel that way. Like it was, you know, the marketing team and the executive team, PR's team, like PR is still those guys' jobs to like believe that it's going to be bigger than ever. But like, yeah, it was us. I think a couple things was we'd already made prototypes that had gotten the executive team excited. So we knew we were kind of like, for better or for worse, like married to those like design decisions because people liked them. And it felt fresh and like new outside of The Walking Dead. Just sort of like world will continue pretty much, like especially in dramatic moments, like the world will go. It wasn't like trying to build a new template. It was literally just like sitting down with the parameters of a zombie story. Like, what are the most important things in a zombie story? And then what are the most important things in a Walking Dead story? And a Walking Dead story is just like the politics of like, do we do X, Y, or Z? So like, it's not gonna like, you have to have that. Like, you have to have like, so much of the Walking Dead comic is like, do we go into this place and do this thing, or do we like be more prudent and wait it out? Like always is like balancing these like not right answers, like the least horrible thing. So that instantly put us in a position where we had to do a game where like your choices mattered, and we had branching content, which we had never had. Like we'd never had branching content in a Telltale game because it was like deemed unaffordable, and it's expensive, and it is like, yeah, if somebody's going to see 60% of your game, you built 40%. It's just like whatever. But and that was a pitch. That was kind of a bit of a pitch job where it's just like but the 40% you don't see makes the 60% you do see so much more important. It's like it's all valuable even if it's not coming out of the screen. So and then the second part was the sort of like timer based stuff, and that stuff felt like right for a zombie story, because like if you stay put, that's the whole fear of zombies. It's like why like people are afraid of them. The idea that like you can never rest because it will just, it's like this like terminal thing that like no matter what, it doesn't need to sleep or whatever. This will eventually get to you. So that made sense for like time-based stuff where it's like, yeah, we just need to keep the story going or it's not going to feel like a zombie story. So like what became the template for a whole host of games was really like us trying to like do what was right for that game, and ended up being like more broadly applied, and I think ended up having like more legs than we thought. At the same time, you know, like I think like I haven't really played a ton of Telltale stuff in the interim. Like I've watched some like Let's Plays, and I've played some Tales of the Borderlands, and I played some Wolf, and I think like the couple like there are sometimes like moments that don't behoove that you kind of like, well, we like, you know, like the worst, like obviously like the thing that people talk about when you think of a Telltale game, we were guilty of this in The Walking Dead, is like the QTE fight, right? Like that's like not the best stuff in the world.
Right.
But it's kind of like what you're left with when you only have those two tools of like choice and time. It's sort of just like, well, input in time. Like it's sort of like that's kind of like what you're left with. So in that sense, like I don't feel good about having like thrust that upon future Telltale designers. But yeah, I don't know if any of that made sense. But it wasn't so much like, let's be ambitious and change the world. It was literally just like, let's just make this game and try to make it good. Because like the company was in a weird time. Like Jurassic Park had just come out, and you know, it was just like it was a weird time. But at the same time, it was also the best time because it felt like everyone like was like, we were in a smaller office. Like it was like, let's just know this has to be good because we need something to really hit. And that was a fun environment to work in. I was like way more afraid to work on season 2, where it was like spotlight and like more people in the room and like more everything, you know. So I kind of like chickened out, I think.
Season 2 is interesting to me just because it seemed like we shot that Molyneux video, like I think around the time where you were writing season 2. So if people don't know, like at E3, Sean drove his motorcycle there, and like we filmed like this interview between him and Peter Molyneux. It's like a one-on-one discussion.
It was a weird day.
I'm so thankful
I've been on a
you did
motorcycle
that.
for 3 hours, and I was like talking to Peter Molyneux, and I had like crusty, gross hair, and I was like, hey. Like it was a good interview, but that was a weird day for me.
Yeah, it was like an hour and a half chat between those two. You should definitely check it out.
Yeah.
But at that time, it seemed like you were getting the ball rolling for season 2. But did you know? Well, you did know that you were going to leave, right?
Oh yeah.
How did that handoff happen for you?
It was like I hired my friend. I hired Nick Brecken. I knew he was good, so it was like it's in good hands. And we had told Telltale that we were probably going to leave like way before, in May. Like there's a project that had come up that we were in the room for. That if we're gonna go to this meeting, we got to tell them we're thinking about leaving. So yeah, it had been in the works for a while, but it was, you know, my job at that point was get a really rough draft of a season arc down, and it was really rough, and then write the first episode, and I'm pretty sure it was all redone like by Nick and people who were better than me. There's like 2 scenes in that first episode that I think I've seen where I'm like, oh hey, I wrote that, like, which is weird, but I don't think about having worked on that really at this, like that's like that is owned by wholly owned creatively other people, I think, and deservedly so.
Yeah. So I mean, coming off of Walking Dead, you must have been like headhunted like crazy, right? I mean, with that on your resume, like, oh, I wrote Walking Dead Season 1, that game was gigantic. Everybody's raving about it. Obviously, it won like Best Game of the Year, the Jeff Keighley Awards, and all that nonsense.
They call those the Jeff Keighley Awards now?
He handed you a Keighley, I think, the lovely statue
I
of
got
it.
my tiny Keighley. Yeah. That should just be what that is, by the way.
2 cell phones.
Like, you should just fucking just like, it's called the Video Game Awards this year.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And so,
Keighlys.
just call these the Keighlys. Let's just fucking call it what it is. I think that'd be very good.
But
I would like that a lot.
people must have been trying to
Tiny
scout you out.
Doritos.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like there were like more opportunities. There was some cool meetings, I guess. Once we left. Yeah.
Was it always you and Jake as a bundle? Were you guys committed to like holding hands to the end there?
like Thelma and Louise. Yeah. Yes. We knew that if we were doing something like independent, yes. But at the same time, like we were both interviewed at other places when we left. Yeah. But it was also like the way things are ramping up project-wise, it was like we were like doing Telltale a disservice by like being around at this stage, because it's like, we take up a lot of space. Like we're both kind of this pushy, loud, not in our personal lives. It's funny. Like we're both really introverted, I think, but in terms of like being in a creative space and like trying to push this thing, like push the boulder forward, we're like take up a lot of room. And that can be really crappy, especially if like we're not going to be the guys doing it. So that was a weird time. It was a difficult time for everyone. Being in the room, but knowing we weren't going to always be in the room. So yeah, every opportunity, like I had a job interview that was like a dream job, and Jake was like, we were living together at the time actually, and like I came back and I was like, I think we should just do our own thing. Like I don't even know if they're gonna give me the job or not, but like let's just do our own thing. And he was like surprised that I had, because it was like, well, jobs will be there, and it just, at the same time though, like if we had to get shoehorned into making something we didn't want to make, like trade, like actual bosses for like shadow bosses, like people like at the studio who were gonna kind of like be like controlling and gonna like that, we were just like, oh, like let's, like I would much rather just work at Telltale with people I know and like in a situation I know than have more responsibility and less control with people I don't know.
Right.
So we were also prepared to not start Campo Santo unless we could like figure out a way to do it in a way that we thought was like healthy and sustainable. And so much of like third-party development is not that, unfortunately. Like it's just really, really, really challenging because you're taking money it gives other people the green light to like email you whatever you want and tell you to do whatever they want you to do, and that's like, I think I had been at Disney long enough to know that third-party development is really hard, and you're kind of at the mercy of the producer or your contact at your publisher, and that person could change in the middle of your project, and your project could have a bad showing. Your project could just not be exciting to certain retail partners. Like it's just like, oh man, like there's this the sheer tonnage of stuff to worry about is really hard. So like whenever I meet somebody who runs a small studio that has a third-party publishing deal, like you are a tougher person than I am. You are much. So yeah, we didn't really know what that meant in terms, like, again, we didn't have this like grand plan. We just sort of had a strategy, and he said, okay, well, if we're not doing something by the end of the year, then maybe we're not going to make a game.
Right.
We were like contracting and stuff, which is a weird world where you're like, I was working on all sorts of weird projects to like keep like have money coming in.
Sure.
And I was like, well, maybe we'll just keep doing that, and then just you and I will start a game, and then we'll just like make it like Lucas Pope levels of like one or two people making a game. Like, and we don't have that talent though. So it was like we don't have the skill set that someone like him has. He made Papers, Please.
Right.
And it was like that's I thought of him because I'm staring at Skype, but like the icon right here is Papers, Please. But yeah, so we were like, well, then we'll do something. We'll just like make it fit. You know, it's like you have time, you have money, you have ambition. You just gotta kind of like squeeze it all into the same hole.
It's interesting to think about, just because it seems you're describing the video game industry as kind of a scary place. I hear that a lot from developers, just how terrifying it is and how everything could fall apart in any instant. You talk about how many projects didn't get off the ground at Disney, yada, yada, yada. But at the same time, it seems like you guys found a really, from the outside at least, a really comfy home with Panic as a publisher. And I know, like, you know, Steve Gaynor, who you referenced earlier, I remember on Idle Thumbs once, you made a reference to like, oh, well, Steve makes it look easy. Like, you just go off on your own, you spend a year and a half, 2 years, you come out with Gone Home, win 1 million awards, then move on to the next one.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. Luckily for, like, it's funny because like when you're his friend, you know, like when we were up there talking to when were we up? We went up to Portland to see Steve and just like see people, and they were in the thick of Gone Home development, and they were all living in a house together, and they were working in this basement, and it was like Carla and Vanaman and Steve's wife Rachel, like, and their 2 cats in a basement, and it was like, this is really punk rock. Like, whoa, like this is like, I don't know if I can do this. And they did that for like year and a half, like almost 2 years, every day, like waking up and your office is like right downstairs, and waking up and going to the, you know, you go to the bathroom and your programmer's in there, you know, doing a number 2, and you're like, you know, like it was hard. Like those guys sacrificed so much to make that game.
Yeah.
But we weren't opposed to it, but we were also like, we would always say, like, when we would talk to people, like, we're not as punk rock as Steve Gaynor. Because it's like, we don't think we can put everybody in a house and then survive. Like, I think we would probably kill each other.
So you just feel really lucky that this Panic deal came around? Is just 1 in a million?
I don't know if it was 1 in a million. It came around at the right time, and we had the right, like, we handled it the right way. We'd been on something that was really popular and different, and then we weren't asking for very much money, so I could be like, this is how many full price units I have to sell for you to get your money back. I'm pretty sure I can do that. Let's hope, like, knock on wood. Sure. So that was a little bit of an easier pitch. It was tough at that time. It was funny, like, talking to publishers then, it was like, we make $200,000 apps or $20 million games. So which one do you want to do? And it's like, neither. Like, if you give me $20 million, I'm not going to take $18 million and like be a millionaire. Like, you're going to go, where did our $20 million go, and expect me to have spent it. Like, I don't want to spend $20 million. Like, that's the only way to spend $20 million is to hire people. And like, that's the only way to spend it. Like, it's like, oh, great, your office is $24,000 a month. Let's say we go, yeah, we're going to rent a $24,000 a month office space in like a beautiful south of the ballpark in San Francisco. Okay, great. On a 2-year game, you just spent $600,000. Right. It's like, you still got $19.4 million to spend. The only way to do it is to hire people. And like, man, like, now you have 45 people. And like, now your game is like, maybe intro. Like, it's like, oh, we feel like we have a Metacritic 70, and our date for ship is October 10th, but we really need like 6 more weeks. It's like, well, now your date to ship is Thanksgiving, so you're not shipping between November 1st and Christmas because we have Flops 3, Battlefield, you know what I mean, Fallout, right. That's that window. So like, you don't get a ship. October 10th is your date. Right. So now you're like, well, here's the thing. If I should wait and hold the game until February, like my 70, like, I don't mean, I'm talking in shorthand. I don't really think about Metacritic score, but right. Like, you know, you're my like C+ game could be a B+ or A. just based on polish alone, because the ideas are good and the experience is good. It's just a little rough around the edges.
Sure.
Like at 9 people, you can go, well, that's not that much money. At 7 people, I guess that's kind of like full time. Jake and I plus 6 full timers plus
So
whatever. We can just be like, it's not that much money. But at 45 people, you're just like, oh, you want to spend another $3 million, and it's like you don't get to do that. So it's just like that level of flexibility is just like, and now you're like, okay, I'm about to ship a B or C plus game, and I have to keep I want to keep 45 people employed after it comes out, but I know it's not going to meet its numbers, so I got to sign another deal right now, and it's like now I'm out pitching deals as opposed to working on my game.
So
it's just like not a good way to work.
Do you think that market's opening up though for the gap between the app and is it just? I mean, I feel like indie games have been around for so long now.
Publishers are talking to us about it.
Okay, nice.
We're in a situation where we don't need it, but like, yeah, there are publishers who are like, oh no, we're interested in doing a $2 to $6 million game. It's like
perfect.
All right, well, perfect. Let's do that. So yeah, I do think that.
Do they have references for like, oh, because I don't know, Gone Home was a success. Do they have like the tentpoles that have kind of opened up that market in their mind?
Yeah. I mean, if you look at like that era of where indie games, like FTL made so much money, like Spelunky, Gone Home did great, like there is a whole host of games of especially those years, and that's about the tail that it takes a publisher to be like, we should do something. It's like 2 years. Yeah, I think there's just enough evidence there.
Nice.
That the games can do well. I mean, even before that, like if you look at the Xbox 360 era, like Limbo,
Meat Boy,
Bastion,
yeah,
Meat Boy, even like Transistor outsold Bastion. People forget.
Really? God, I had no idea. Wow. So I have a deep cut for you, Sean. As you may know, I'm a fan of Idle Thumbs. This comes from Idle Thumbs years ago. But you talked about this vacation you took to the Bahamas. And
with the kids playing Monkey Island?
Yes, and you said at the time, because Firewatch wasn't revealed and no one knew what you guys were working on, but you said, no matter what, this experience of playing Monkey Island with some random kids in the Bahamas is going to influence the design of my next game. And I'm curious if, now that Firewatch is almost done, you can see that
You're
influence?
like a fucking ghost of Christmas past.
That's right. Yeah, welcome to hell, Sean.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yes, in that being able to go to put somebody in a space and say, what do you want to do? And they're like, Monkey Island. It's like, I want to like, whatever, like use verb to that pirate, or like, I want to go over there, or like, I want to pick that up. It's like, okay. That game is the best when it's like, yeah, you can do that. Yes. The game says yes, or gives you a little joke. And that was definitely like brought in to Firewatch of like, I want to like pick this up and throw it in there and have something happen. It's like, okay. Like, or just like, I want to like pick that thing up. Okay. Like, I want to say something about that. It's like, okay. I want to tell Delilah about this weird experience I just had. Okay. Like, we just try to say yes as much as possible.
Doesn't yes just equal dollar signs though in production?
Not if your systems are good, right? So like I wrote up a stupid note. Like I was in a very early scene of the game. There's a scene that like this isn't really a spoiler, but there's a scene in a garage, which is weird because it's not in the woods. And I was like, I want to pick up these cinder blocks. It's like super easy. Like that's literally like not work. Like we have good systems for picking up stuff. We have good systems for like making objects interactive. It's just like click, click, click. So like you spend a lot of money building the foundation, but like in terms of like, if I was said like, oh, I want to say something about this owl noise that I heard, like in terms of writing the line and getting into the game, it's like almost free. Like I can get it into the game almost instantly. I just have to get Rich and Sissy to say it.
Right.
Which like dollar, like line for line is really cheap. They can do 500 lines an hour in the studio. So,
and this is Rich from Mad Men, Harry Crane on Mad Men. Awesome.
Yeah, Rich Summer from Mad Men, and then Sissy Jones, who played Katja in The Walking Dead season 1.
Oh, that's awesome. And I know you're a huge Mad Men fan. Do you get to have those nerdy discussions with Rich?
A little bit, yeah. I try not to. I would try not to like. Because we were recording, and while they were shooting the final season, which was weird. So like, he's like, I would know, like I knew he was in the last episode because like he's like I gotta work, and I'm like, oh, Like, and I knew they were shooting the last episode, so I knew he was in the last episode, stuff like that.
I'm assuming
mostly it's like me just being like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Nope.
But like it'll mostly be like I'll be giving Rich direction, and he'll be like, I don't know what you want, and I'll be like, no, it's like blah 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 blah, and I'll say something stupid, and then he'll laugh, and I'll be like, I'm sorry, I'm not Emmy award-winning director Matthew Weiner. Like, stuff like that, you know. I'll be like, what? You don't have to like scream like F you really loudly on the set, like on the set of Mad Men,
Like you're in the woods.
Like, yeah, like how would you guys do this on Mad Men, Rich? Like that'll happen a lot. So it's mostly sarcastic, you know.
Perfect.
I'm assuming that you recast the character or changed Rich's performance a lot based on his prep bully from Wet Hot American Summer after you.
Oh, we did a full rewrite.
Yeah, of course.
Full
Very
rewrite
shrewd.
of Camp Tiger after Camp Tiger Claw. Yeah, that's funny because that was also shooting like while we were making this game. So it was like, yeah.
Oh man.
I'm excited. I'm excited to spend more time with that actor.
Interesting.
In a more prolonged experience, you know, because it's just like he's never quite there in the spotlight, it seems like, you know, but not that he is here either because it's a first person game.
And he didn't really get a great send off on Mad Men.
Right.
Like his last big scene was like that terrible scene with Megan in the restaurant. It's like that's not a good note to go out on. Man.
Right.
His last scene is like handing over some cookies and saying "see you in the funny papers." Yeah, I mean that's sort of like that was the thing that was actually really surprising and enjoyable about making the game is that like he is just like unstoppably good. Like I'll write something that I think is kind of funny or like, oh, there's something in here, and he'll just like turn it into something else. And he insists he got to a point after working on a game for so long that like they just had banter that was so good. Like, and I could write for their banter, and I could go like I just write to their strengths now, where it's like Rich has got to be a little sardonic. He's got to be a little like I got to give him space to like make the line have meaning as opposed to keeping it in the line. So it's like he knows if this comes after her saying something silly or something stupid or whatever, he knows where to go with it. And there's lines in the game like still like just it's like a simply written line, but he'll deliver it and it'll like destroy me. So there's a lot of those, which is great.
In the stuff you've released for Firewatch so far, there have been like two big things that have really captured my imagination, and I think I don't know if this reaches across everybody, but it's like, ooh, this is unique. But I think the first gameplay demo where you like throw the boombox into the lake, that's a systemic thing that you referenced earlier. But it's like, yes, I would like to do that. I would like the freedom to chuck this boombox out into a lake. That seems fun. And then also like the sequence in the cave where the main character, Henry, right? Mm-hmm. When he's just singing that Toto song. Yeah. In the cave, we're just like, of course, it's so great. I'm a sucker for licensed things in games. I mean, Metal Gear Solid 5 is a good example of that, but like stuff like that. How does that, for example, come around? Just the specific Toto song. Do you have to license it? If it's like sung crudely enough, is it fine?
Yeah, that's fair use. That's okay. Yeah, I don't know. I was just writing. I was just skirting around. Like it's just one of those things. Like I didn't even. It's like now people think about it and know about it and like ask me about it, but like it was like when I wrote it, it was like I forgot I wrote it the moment I did it. It was just like he goes in there, he says some stuff. It's like I guess if I'm thinking like more calculatedly, like what I was thinking, probably it's like it's really easy, especially after you get to know the character, for this guy to just like be a real wet blanket. Like it was just like enough. So I wanted him to be playful, you know, and have like you be likable and like feel like, oh yeah, like that's the sort of I do when I'm alone in a place. You're like, why wouldn't I do that? But yeah, it's mostly just
yeah.
Not a thought of it.
There's more space.
There's a mix of like made up stuff in the game, and then there's like they reference President of Reagan. They mention.
I love that.
So yeah, we do lots. There's I'm trying to think of other stuff they do. Milli Vanilli gets a call out at one point. But I'm not trying to be like too in the era, but at the same time, it's like he talks about basketball. He'll talk about like he's like a Nuggets fan because he's from Boulder and they're bad. So like I know everybody who played on the Nuggets that year, like you know, like this stuff like that.
Nice. Yeah, I feel like games don't do that enough. I mean, Gone Home is like a big example of it, and then I know Life is Strange probably does a little bit too much with constantly referencing real world stuff. But it's refreshing to see, just because throughout the history of video games, it seems like they were scared to touch on the real world in any real way.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard when you're like making a fantasy to like also touch on the real world. But man, I mean, even just having the licensed music in Fallout is so good. Like I don't know, all those old standards are like that's really awesome. And I really like in BioShock Infinite they had the Barbershop Quartet.
Yeah, God only knows. Yeah, it's another great example.
Yeah, that stuff was so good. That's stuff I'm like I'm not like it's like I'm not into it because it's like, oh, I get the reference. It's more just like, oh, it feels real. Like it makes it feel real to me, which I like a lot.
Yeah, speaking of like characters with idiosyncrasies and the Fallout radio, I think that Diamond City radio DJ has slowly become one of my favorite characters in recent time. He's just like totally not a good speaker and stumbling over all of his words and stuff like that. And so when you're talking about Henry, it's just like, I don't know. I'm excited to have another more believable character in gaming. And everyone's just like a little bit too polished a lot of the times. So yeah.
You want another one?
Yeah. It's also hard. I mean, it's funny because I'm playing Fallout, right? And like I'm like not very far, a couple hours in. But I think about it a lot now I'm thinking about it in terms of Firewatch a lot and just like how characters react to things. And it's just, God, I'm like, gosh, I'm so glad I don't have to like everything that's happening into your character is like 1 second of that game would be the most interesting moment of a human being's entire life, right? Like, it's like, well, I jumped off a building in a power suit and I like Gatling gunned a dude in the street.
I built a house in 2 minutes.
Anyone's life, you'd be like, it would be the most. You would never be the same again.
Right.
After that.
It'd be your Twitter
so
bio.
Hard to write dialogue in that. Like, how do you write a character? Like, how do you? Which is okay. Like, I'm glad. Like, I think ultimately, like, Fallout's really good, but like, it's just got to be so hard to be like, this is the tone that we take always. Because like in Firewatch, Henry would get on the radio and be like, oh my God, like you're not going to believe what just happened to me, like, because that's the way the world works.
Yeah.
But that radio DJ is amazing. That radio DJ like is like my favorite character in the game for sure.
So what specifically about Firewatch do you think is still capturing your imagination after all this time you spent working on it? What's most interesting to you about this game?
I still find like weird areas that I didn't know about because like the world's contiguous, so like it's not like corridors. It's not like. Even like it's not like Half-Life 2 where like the corridors get as big as a field, it's like it's contiguous. So like I like was trying to like I knew where to go in the first mission, but I was like I'm just gonna go a crazy way. So like I'm trying to do right now is play every mission by going like the most bizarre way possible. And like yesterday, like dropped down into this like went through these trees and like dropped down into this like depression area and like depressed like bowl and saw like this arch with like an area behind it that like I couldn't get to, but I'm like didn't really know. I'd been playing the game for like a long time, like had never been there, and like took a screenshot and I was like, Jane, like is this an area that? And she's like, oh yeah, I want to do something over there. So like her and Jake have the vision of the whole. Like they're not surprised by that stuff, but then like they'll be like, oh, I like was down at the teen campsite and I like threw something in the fire and like now he says something when that happens. It's like, oh yeah, he's been able to do that for like 3 months. And it's like I didn't know. So it's like they discover that stuff and I discover their stuff and like we're still discovering each other's stuff, which I think is probably that feels good and right, like it feels like, man, for a player it'll all be new, which is pretty cool. Yeah.
So you're feeling pretty good about the game overall?
Yeah, I mean, I'm feeling like really proud to have made it with the people who I've made it with. Like, we're just like, it's like, will not have been a waste of time. No matter what you guys think about it, no matter how well it does or how well it doesn't do, I'll be like, yeah, I'm really glad I took 2 years to make this. So, I think everybody feels that way.
Oh, good. It's just such an interesting spot to be in, to be like, this is leaving the kind of safe world of video game production, I guess, at Telltale. It's like this is the big one. This is your first one out of the gate. This is like, this has to summarize your entire feelings about video games and video game design. So imagine it's an interesting spot to be in, but the hard work's behind you, right?
Yeah, I mean, like it's hard. Every day is sort of like the same. Like I will say, being like voice locked is for my life way easier. Like I'm working harder and have way more to do now, but like the blank piece of paper problem is over. Like the sort of like what do they say? Like I never have to feel that way again on this game. And now it's like every problem I have, the paper might be full of like impossible to decipher nonsense that I have to figure out, but at least it's not blank.
Yeah.
So that's good. And I don't. It's so funny. Like this, I don't think that. For me, it's like I think the second game will be harder, because the first game it's like we're figuring it out, you know. And I think like if we get to make a second game, like that second one might be the hard one, because like at that point, like 2 points will make a line, and then that will be what our studio is about.
Interesting.
You know, so like right now it feels I still feel relatively free. We didn't like try to like make a big statement about what a video game should be. Like we don't really feel that way. We just try to make something that we think is good and like makes us feel the way we feel when we play games we like. But yeah, I think the second one will be hard if we get to do it.
Right.
I'm being incredibly honest in this interview, but yeah. That's the other thing is like now we're promoting our own game, and like I'll probably be doing more of these in January and February and stuff. And like it's weird to like to be promoting your own game that you came up with from scratch. Like we all just had nothing, and then we all made this from nothing. And then to talk to people about it in a way that like gets them really excited to play the game, but isn't like I don't have like Telltale's like main PR guy's this guy Job, and he's the best. He's like the best in the business. So good. But like if I have to go do promo for a Telltale game, I'm like, Job, what are we talking about? Like what do you want? What's the message right now? Like what do you guys want people to care about? So I'll go in and just have that. I'll be like, oh, choice. We're talking about this, and I'm selling and like, getting you excited. But like I don't have that guy on this. So it's like, you know, it's like it comes across probably more like touchy-feely and more about ideas and feelings as opposed to me being like, Firewatch comes out February 9th. It's going to be great. It's an exciting mystery adventure game set in the woods with the best character voice acting you've ever heard in your entire life. You know, like that's what I should be saying, but like I don't.
It's just it makes us feel good. We like playing it.
It'll make you feel awful too. Like if you it has that level of like The Walking Dead sort of like why-ness to it. So don't worry about that. You'll feel like it for sure.
Oh God, I can't wait to feel.
I've been feeling pretty good lately, so that sounds all right.
Yeah.
All right, and we can feel like it on February 9th. Is that right?
February 9th on Steam and PS4.
Awesome, cool. Anything else you want to say, man?
Should be PC, Mac, Linux on same date.
Oh, Linux, interesting.
Yeah, of course. Please, PC Master Race. Come on.
Is it tough to do the Linux port?
We're on Unity, so like everything's hard always. So it's hard to say like, oh no, it's easy, but like it's like doable because we're games built in Unity. Keeping up with like the PS4, like every version of Unity that comes out like builds a little slightly differently, and like getting that locked in has been a little bit more of a challenge. The game runs good on PS4, which is nice. So it's fun to play on PS4. But
cool.
yeah, it's all hard. It's like everything's hard. Games are just like disasters. They don't really hard to make. So,
yet you choose to stay in the industry.
Yeah. It's like, oh, we're making a movie. Build a camera. It's like step one. Yeah, build a camera. Create life. Carve ground from nothing. Yeah. But yeah, and then I think we're shooting for we're going to be rolling out like localizations. So we'll have subtitled lokes for all the countries, but like we're a small team. So we're going to be like rolling those out and bringing it to like new territories as soon as those exist. But like we should be in most English speaking places launch day and like others, but you might not have your language there yet if you're not super good at understanding English.
Sure.
So then, but why are you listening to this podcast? You can't speak English.
It's a great question.
Yeah, you guys localize this into like 15 languages. Right?
Actually, the only time we've localized stuff, which is interesting, is like the Witcher 3 cover story we did a while ago. Like a bunch of people were reaching out saying that they wanted all those videos in Russian. And so CD Projekt Red is like, yeah, we'll translate all your video interviews into Russian for you. It's like, yeah, sure. So we released a bunch of Russian videos, but that's like our only example of like our content ever, I guess, crossing those borders.
I don't think I knew that. That's awesome.
Yeah,
I know. I'm kind of excited to like see the game in like languages like Russian and Korean and Japanese.
Yeah, see like the Famitsu review for Firewatch. It's gonna be great.
Yeah. We want to do like a real Japanese like we're just kind of talking about it, like a good Japanese version. But it's gonna be definitely won't be February 9th. It'll be afterwards, but we'll tell everybody and make a big deal out of it.
Cool.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Sean, thank you so much for
Thanks,
being
guys.
on the Game Informer
Yeah,
show.
thank you.
Be sure to keep your eye on the Steam release calendar, whatnot, for February 9th for Firewatch on
Yeah,
everything.
and we have a good dev blog, by the way, at camposanto.com that we like. If you want to know about how to make stuff like this, like we're try to put up interesting articles about about our process and stuff and things like that.
Yeah, you guys have been great and open. You're doing like the Q&As on your YouTube channel and stuff like that. So it's interesting
Trying
stuff.
to.
Yeah, definitely check it out. Cool. And thank you so much for listening or watching the Game Informer show. Be sure to tune in next week and we'll have a new episode wait for you. Bye.